I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time.
Williams who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspects in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 6. It is Tuesday, of course. Why wouldn't you be surprised to know that Donald Trump is making more moves all over the world, making sure that Vladimir Zelensky is indeed roped into whatever it is the conversation is going on between the White House and, of course, the Kremlin. It looks as though Emmanuel Macron went to the White House yesterday and got on reasonably well, even though he was kept waiting for a little while. He wasn't greeted outside the White House by Donald Trump. You do wonder whether Keir Starmer's going to get the same treatment when he goes there on Thursday. Yesterday, David Lammy was standing up in Parliament getting all sorts of questions about how we were going to deal with the Ukrainian situation. There was an awful lot of people in Parliament going on and on and on and on endlessly about what a great man Volodymyr Zelensky is. He may well be. That's not really the focus of our attention this morning. We're going to be talking about it, of course, though. Trump invites Zelensky to secure peace in weeks, is what it says on the front page of the Times. Front page of the Telegraph, France's nuclear shield for Europe. Macron's change of tack on defence puts pressure on Starmer to follow suit. Basically, France saying it's ready to use its nuclear deterrent to help protect Europe. So once again, Donald Trump has basically outfoxed pretty much everybody. All of those lefties last week who were saying, oh, isn't it terrible? Donald Trump's being a terrible man. He's doing awful things. He's making out that Volodymyr Zelensky is the bad guy and Putin's the good guy. Well, it's all coming out in the wash. As I predicted, actually, what will happen is that the war will come to an end, there will be a peace deal, and everybody will eventually settle down and stop whining about Donald Trump being the devil incarnate. I mean, all of these people that say Donald Trump should know it's Putin who's the bad guy, well, how about you know it's not that Putin is the bad guy, but Trump is not the bad guy either. A couple of big stories on the way. Peter Blexley's here with us as well. We've got plenty to talk about. There's a new crime bill being introduced in Parliament today. They're going to be cracking down on e-bikes. They're going to be cracking cracking down on phone thieves. They're going to be cracking down on all manner of people, supposedly, to make our streets safer. They're going to be bringing back community policing. That's what they tell us they're going to do. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is full of the joys of spring. When you read through the crime bill statistics of what it is they say they're going to do, it looks as if they're going to fix every single criminal problem we've got in this country. Somehow, I'm not entirely sure that's the way it's going to play out. Also, we're going to be talking about the CBI. They've warned that the tax on farms is going to hurt growth. The BBC cameraman who was involved in that Gaza documentary, apparently he celebrated on October the 7th and was very happy that there was a Hamas victory in terms of murdering, shooting, raping and burning children and mothers and fathers and animals. Unbelievable stuff. It turns out we've given £400,000 of BBC money to the people that made that documentary. We'll be talking about that as well. We've got lots and lots of ways of getting in touch. If you've forgotten, have a listen to this.
Morning, Mike. Fantastic show.
Morning, Mike. Matt from Doncaster.
Good morning, Mike. Chris from Barnsley.
Morning, Mike. Jackie from Manchester.
Morning, Mike. Great show as ever.
Hi, Mike. It's Pete in Manchester. Sorry, I've just choked on my morning coffee laughing at that absolute plonker.
Very well done. And welcome to Morning Glory. We've got a big surprise for you coming up today as well, because we're going to be letting you know how you can show that you're a big fan of Morning Glory. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some bumper stickers we're going to be giving away, and we'll send them out to you if you want them. So we're telling you how to do that as well. Peter Plexley's here. Very good morning to you, Mr. Plexley.
Pull up to my bumper, baby. That's
you are looking very well, I must say.
Thank you.
Welcome. At this time of the morning, you are looking tremendously well. Welcome to Morning Glory, a place that you know well. There's all sorts of things we can talk about. I guess we should start once again with the international situation. Keir Starmer was just a couple of days away from visiting the White House. Emmanuel Macron was there yesterday. A bit of laughing and joking going on. He and Trump are not exactly the best of friends, but they seem to get on all right.
I've got some advice for Keir Starmer.
Have you?
When he goes to Washington.
Yeah.
And that would be wear a name badge.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people will be going, who's that bloke over there?
Well, do you know what? I said to my producer yesterday, I said, can we find some Washington correspondents to talk to about Keir Starmer to get their view on what they think of him just before he arrives there? Because I can guarantee you that they'll all be going, sorry, who? Yeah. What? What's he doing?
Yeah. And yet again, Donald Trump has clearly shown this week, and it's only Tuesday, that he stands as a political colossus over the global landscape. Macron meeting him yesterday, a very amiable picture on the front page of some of the newspapers, excuse me, with them both laughing and enjoying a moment together.
Yes.
And look how Macron has shifted now.
Yeah.
Look how he's saying.
Well, this is what I've been saying.
We'll provide a nuclear deterrent.
This is what I've been saying. I said it last week when everyone was getting their knickers in a twist about, Donald Trump, what a terrible man. He looks like he's siding with Vladimir Putin. He's rowing Ukraine out of the conversation. They're suddenly having meetings in Saudi Arabia. I was like, just wait and see how it pans out. They're all so desperate to criticise Trump for being a ghastly, horrible, nasty, right-wing individual who's a narcissist that they can't see the wood for the trees.
Because what he is, Donald Trump, is a deal maker.
Yeah.
It's what he's done all his life.
Right.
And anybody who's made a business deal will know that the position that you start from, in all likelihood, will not be the position that you end at when you sign that deal.
Of course not.
But Donald Trump is brilliant at creating a start point, getting conversations going, and thereafter people jockey for position.
Look at where we are now. 3 or 4 weeks ago, nobody in Europe thought that we should be building up our defences. Nobody in Europe thought that we should even be considering doing anything but continuing to feed money to Ukraine until we basically run out of money. Nobody thought it was a good idea maybe to end the war. Suddenly, Donald Trump comes on the scene, and here we are, looking like we're going to end the war, and looking like, actually, Zelensky is going to be happy with the deal.
And stopping bloodshed surely has to be a good thing. If less mothers lose their children, if less wives lose their husbands and children lose their fathers, and all of that, then surely that has to be beneficial. And, of course, let's not forget, if we rewind just over a month ago, was anybody talking about rebuilding Gaza?
No.
No.
Exactly.
Not a soul on the planet.
No, not even the people in Gaza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Donald Trump comes into power,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden these conversations start happening with, of course, as you've clearly laid out, the left is all getting their knickers in a twist over it and slagging him off.
Yeah.
But look what happens. Things do begin.
Yeah, because as soon as you know, as well as I do, in the business that you were in, and are not perhaps as much involved in it as you were, you know, sometimes you need to grab somebody by the throat to get them to pay attention.
You do. Sometimes you need to be robust.
Exactly.
To grab somebody's attention.
Yeah.
To have them clearly focused on what you're saying.
Hello.
Yeah.
No, you grab them by the throat, put them against the wall, and go, look, mate, this is what we're doing.
Indeed.
I'm sorry. I mean, you know, call me old-fashioned. Let's get a couple of clips on board because let's have Emmanuel Macron first talking about defence of the realm.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. This is a very important moment for Europe as well, and I'm here as well after discussions with all my colleagues to say that Europe is willing to step up, to be a stronger partner, to do more in defense and security for this continent, and as well to be a reliable partner and to be engaged on trade, economy, investment.
Now, I would call that a capitulation. I don't know about you, Peter, but having been told to step up and been told to do more, he's now sitting in the White House like a child going, yes, we will step up, yes, we will do more, yes, we will build up our defences. Why didn't he say that before Donald Trump came into power? Because nobody'd asked him.
A stronger partner, he says. I mean, what a telling phrase.
Yes.
And what was the situation under sleepy Joe Biden? Where was the world?
Nothing.
Just aimlessly drifting towards
Right.
continual conflict. And now there are peace talks. Now people are talking about how can we stop this bloodshed.
Yeah.
Macron this week, Starmer next week,
Yeah.
all going there, and I'm sure trying to create a good relationship with Trump.
Yeah.
But they know he has politically outmanoeuvred
Of course he has.
the pair of them in the last few weeks with astonishing aplomb.
Right, and let's not forget, they were all saying last week, oh, but he's such a bad man, he's such a horrible narcissist, it's all about him. He doesn't care about Zelensky, he's never even going to talk to him, he's got no plans to meet him. Have a look at Trump talking about meeting Zelensky.
I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. Would meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It'll be a deal with rare earths and various other things, and he would like to come, as I understand it, here to sign it, and that would be great with me. I think they then have to get it approved by their council or whoever might approve it, but I'm sure that will happen.
So once again, you know, they all got it wrong. He's never going to talk to Zelensky. Why is he not talking to him? Why is he throwing him out the conversation? It was all BS, right? Trump knew exactly what he was doing, and now he's talking about meeting Zelensky.
Because so many of the current breed of politicians, wheresoever in Europe they might be, they've gone to university and they've studied PPE, politics, philosophy and economics, or the equivalent thereof.
Yeah.
They leave university.
I've got another phrase for PPE, but I can't say it on the radio, obviously.
They leave university wet behind the ears. Their lifetime's ambition of getting a job for a political party is then fulfilled.
Yes.
And so they go. If you go, look at your Camerons and your Osborns and all those kind of people. Your Starmer's all right, he had a job as a DPP. But so many of that political class, no matter what party they're from, have kind of followed that route. Whereas Donald Trump, all his work in life has been in a boardroom, brokering deals, making contracts, getting agreements, arrangements.
Also, let's not forget, I mean, while Stephen Fry at the weekend on Laura Kuenssberg's show was alleging that Donald Trump is like a gangster, let me tell you something about Donald Trump. When he was putting up the Trump Tower, when he was building buildings in Manhattan, when I was living there in the 80s, he was having to have conversations with the mafia. He was having to have conversations with the Teamsters, the people who put the buildings up, the unions in America, which are riddled with organised crime all over the place, right? He's dealing with those people. I think he can deal with a few politicians, no problem.
And he's proving that. He's absolutely proving that. And yet so many people get on their high horses because he chooses a standpoint, which he knows is going to get airtime and column inches throughout the world.
Yeah.
He chooses that standpoint, his starter for 10, if you will, and of course he's entirely willing to move from that position because he knows how you broker a deal.
Yes, absolutely right. Let's have a look at him talking about maybe even visiting Russia. Check this out.
Mr. President, are you thinking of going to Moscow soon, maybe in May for the 9th of May for the anniversary?
I mean, not soon, but I would be certainly, if this all gets settled out, which I think it will, sure, I would go there.
On the 9th
and
of May?
he'd come here, too.
On the 9th of May on the Red Square?
I don't know the 9th of May, no, I don't. I think that's pretty soon. But no, at the appropriate time, I would go to Moscow.
Monsieur le Président, est-ce que l'envoi de troupes françaises ou européennes est envisagé en Ukraine?
Within weeks.
They're all getting their knickers in a twist. I just find it amusing. I know these are serious things, these are serious matters, these are, world-changing events, but he's literally running rings around them, and these journalists are sitting there bizarrely just making fools of themselves.
And they are, of course, extremely serious matters. The loss of, and some reliable estimates, I think, say that around 150,000 men have perished on the battlefield since this war began just over 3 years ago. So 50,000 a year, 1,000 a week. Donald Trump realises that scale of bloodshed and death is enormous.
Yeah.
And he wants to do something about it.
Yes.
And if people don't like his methods, well, do you know what? Buckle up, because he's here for another 4 years.
Exactly right. Speaking of here for another 4 years, let's have a look at Keir Starmer. He made a statement yesterday on Ukraine. He took part in a Zoom meeting. It already sounds worse than what Donald Trump's doing because it's a Zoom meeting. You're fixing the foundations and doing everything we can for working people. This is him, unable, by the way, to speak without a piece of paper in front of him, talking about Ukraine. Check it out.
The UK is with you today and every day. From His Majesty the King to the NHS workers volunteering in hospitals in Ukraine, to the communities that took Ukrainian refugees to their heart. And that's why I signed our 100-year partnership with President Zelensky last month, because we believe in Ukraine's fight today and the country's incredible potential to thrive in the years to come.
Why does he need a piece of paper? It's like me. Here we are. Welcome to Morning Glory. I would like to tell you that for the next 4 hours, I will be talking to you about all of the fixtures of what is going on in the news. Peter Blexley's here, and I will tell you that it's very important that we... But, get rid of the paper, mate. What's going on?
I'm so glad you stopped that impersonation. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Mike.
It's good though, isn't it? Sounds just like him.
But the equivalent is of you sitting here and doing 4 hours of Morning Glory, coming straight out of the studio to talk to, say, for example, the media about what you've just done for a number of hours, and needing a piece of paper to reference
I don't get it.
You don't. No. You come out, you know what you've just done.
How many times have you been in court and you've seen barristers, which is what he's supposed to be, performing, because that's what they do, they're very good at it, many times, particularly criminal barristers in the Old Bailey.
Yeah.
They stand up, they make a case, they appeal to the jury, they obviously appeal to the judge, they illustrate what's been going on. They don't walk around with a bit of A4, do they?
No. He's
how useless is that?
He is so dreadful. And this is, I actually find it rather concerning because we have to unfortunately remind ourselves that this man is the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
But how can he not come out of a meeting, and he did it last week when he met the European leaders and came out with his A4 yet again, exactly the same, and not know what he's going to talk about.
Right.
How can he not know that?
No.
How can it not be in his head, having spent all day or a number of hours talking about it?
Right.
How can he not know that when he stands in front of a camera, looks down that lens, he doesn't know what he's going to say?
It's ridiculous.
It shows a shocking lack of intellectual dexterity.
Yes.
And perhaps, all right, he has to have a certain level of intelligence, I get that, but he doesn't strike me as being a towering intellect.
I don't think a towering intellect is the word that you're looking for when you describe fixing the foundations. Anyway, listen, Peter Blexley's here. We've had a break because we've got lots going on. This is from Mark, who says, Mike, any chance I can get in first for a bumper sticker, please? And a mug if you got one spare. I'm listening all the way from Adelaide. As an expat who moved out here for work, I'm more than happy to display the sticker from high and promote you down under. Mark, listen, we'll get you a sticker. We'll get you a bumper sticker straight away. This is a big thing we're doing today. You can join the revolution of common sense. Get yourself a bumper sticker. Recognise each other out there. Put it on the back of your car. Put it on the front of your car if you like. Put it on the side window if you want. There's one you can get. We've got 3 different ones. But all you got to do, Mark, is send us your address, and we'll send it all the way down to Adelaide. We don't mind the postage. Basically, join the home of common sense. Be part of the revolution, because this is what we do here at Talk. We join together, holding hands across the water, across the oceans, across the world, basically. It's morning glory, it's common sense. Why wouldn't you want to be part of it? We'll be back after this.
Be pleased to know that while he's in jail, he'll receive his full MP's salary.
If you are a legislator and you become a law breaker, there should be a mechanism to get rid of that individual. The fact that he's going to be earning, and let's just be clear on what his salary is, £90,000 a year. So over the next 3 months, so what's that? That is about £24,000 of taxpayers' money. Mike Amesbury will earn sitting in his prison cell.
Yeah.
And not working for his constituents, because how can he?
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 23 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham. Peter Blexley is here, and it is a big day, ladies and gentlemen, today. We are now with not only the rest of the world sympathising with the way that the world is going, but you can join the revolution. You can get yourself a bumper sticker and say that you're part of the Morning Glory common sense revolution. Stay calm and listen to Talk. That's one of them. You can also join the home of common sense, the home of common sense. Picture of me, stick it on the back of your car, and everybody will know that you are a very sensible individual. Meaning, of course, Peter Blexley, that we can move on to the next story today, which is a big story about police and crime. The police and crime bill is going to be introduced into Parliament today. According to some of the papers this morning, police are going to crack down on phone theft. New powers are going to be given to them to enter buildings and seize stolen phones located via tracking apps. This is particularly close to my heart because when I had my phone stolen back in October of last year, I was actually asked by the police, have you been able to track your phone? This is after I wrote a piece in the Daily Telegraph, of course. They weren't that interested before that. And I said, yes, I can tell you exactly where it is. It's an address in Camberwell in South London. And they said, well, we can't really go there because we haven't got any resources with which to do that.
I don't want to be cynical, and I'm not going to say this bill will turn out to be pointless, but, sorry, and it's a big but, you can introduce as many new laws as you like.
Yes.
But unless you have senior management within policing that actually get a grip of what it is that concerns the public and actually empower and support the lower ranking officers on the front line to enforce these laws, then not a lot is going to change.
No.
However, with this new bill starting its way through Parliament today, they will now allow the police to have powers. For example, your phone situation.
Yes.
If the police go to an address and somebody is saying, look, I've tracked my stolen device.
Yeah.
It's in that house now. This bill will allow the police to enter that address with the authority of an inspector.
But why didn't they have that authority before this bill was introduced? Because, you know, there used to be a time when I was a kid the police would burst through a door in order to catch an assailant or in the act or whatever.
Because
when did that
modern
change?
police are frightened of their own shadows, basically. They're not very inventive. They're not very audacious. They're not particularly well trained in the law either, because those days of when you had to know the law inside out.
You literally kicked the door in. They used to talk about kicking the door in.
Yeah. Oh, and I kicked and smashed many a doors in over the years, and it was, generally speaking, very good fun. However, this law is going to allow an inspector to grant authority rather than the officers having to go away, get a search warrant, and then come back.
Yes.
Which, of course, in all probability, the device will have been
disappeared.
moved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but the trouble is, so if you're PC Jones and PC Smith, other police names are available, and you're at the front door of this premises with somebody saying, I've tracked my phone, my iPad, my laptop, the indicators are all that it's coming from that address. It's there. Now, you've then got to get on the radio and speak to the inspector to get his authority. Now, that inspector might be supervising a different crime scene.
He could be in a diversity meeting as well.
He most certainly could be.
Right, so he couldn't be available, maybe.
He most certainly could be. And that is an actual practical difficulty that they're going to face because the inspector might not be available.
Yes.
So
it's not an automatic right that you have as a police officer to go and back and kick the door in, effectively.
It depends. There's a raft of legislation over the justification for searching. If you've got an immediate pursuit of someone, for example, then you can pretty much go in. But this is more a pursuit of a device.
Yes.
So, of course, the law is somewhat different.
I've had calls from people over the course of years that we've been doing this job. A guy who had his motorcycle stolen. He tracked it because it had a tracker on it, and he knew that the motorcycle was in a lock-up garage, and he called the police and he said, look, I know where it is. I'm literally standing outside the lock-up garage. It's in there. All you got to do is open it and come and do it. And they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will
change
will
make
things.
A difference.
I'm not shouting it from the rooftops because I think the whole mindset of policing has to change more than actually the laws. I think the problem is with senior policing management and their lack of support for the front line. I don't think just passing more laws is going to be a cure of all the ills that beset policing these days. But another law that's going to come out of this bill going through Parliament is with regards to e-cycles.
Yes.
These electric bikes.
E-bikes,
and some of them are an absolute blooming nuisance.
Right.
They're a scourge to local communities. They're a blight.
Well, at least also kids are using them to sort of, tear up on golf courses, on public parks, all that sort of thing, ruining
and
them.
snatch the phones out of people's hands outside. So, this silent approach, because, of course, you can barely hear them, and then your phone's gone. So they are an absolute blooming nuisance. Well, now the police are going to be empowered to seize them immediately, as opposed to having to issue a warning, which is what they had to do in the past. But the trouble exists still now. You've got to be able to stop them. You've got to be able to actually seize the bike in order to take control of it.
I mean, I must say, there was a time, and I would say maybe a year or so ago, possibly the year before, when there were scooters everywhere. It was like a real scourge in London. People on these, illegal scooters, and the police actually did say they were seizing them. And after a while, you don't see so many of those scooters anymore.
No, we don't,
because they actually took them off people. Guess what?
Yeah, something happened and they did it, and it improved life for everybody.
Exactly. The other thing they're saying they're going to do is they're going to clamp down on shoplifting, and they're going to give more rights to people in shops, because they're going to do away with this idea that if you nick anything less than worth than £200, we can just let you off. But again, how are they going to do that?
Well, let me just warn you, that whole 250 quid in relation to shoplifting was part of a police crime courts and sentencing bill of about a decade ago. And what that bill said was that shoplifting under 250 quid cannot be tried at the Crown Courts. So, of course, that was taken as carte blanche, as a licence to steal, and look where it's got us now. So, a word of caution. Shoplifting is the absolute blight on our high streets for shopkeepers. Over 1,000 incidences, not only of stealing, but 1,000 incidences a day of abuse or assaults on retail staff.
Exactly.
Now, my first job, full-time job, was in retail. I like the retail sector because I think for kids who are not particularly academic, it offers a career path.
It does.
There are people sitting in boardrooms of major retailers that started on the shop floor. It's a meritocracy.
And they're better at it as well because of having done that.
Exactly. Retail is a meritocracy. And it provides a very good career pathway for people that want to go down that route. And it also offers lots of part-time opportunities for mothers going back to work and elderly people, more elderly people wanting to stay in work and all of that. But, of course, all this violence that is being meted out upon retail staff is going to deter people from taking those jobs.
Yeah, of course.
We need to protect our shopkeepers.
So, I mean, on balance, if you were to give it a sort of mark out of 10, this policing crime bill, in terms of how much success it will have, what would you give it?
For its intentions? I'll give it a strong 6. For its application, we will have to wait and see.
That's slightly worrying. But listen, we've got lots more to do. I've no idea, says Mike in Colchester, how Starmer succeeded as a lawyer. Imagine stumbling Starmer up against someone of the calibre of Jason Beer from the Horizon inquiry. Mr Beer would wipe the floor with Starmer and his wad of waffle. And one from Michelle in Altrincham says, is there any archive footage of Starmer working as a barrister, or is that perhaps another exaggeration of the truth? Well, given what old Jonathan Reynolds has said about how he used to be a solicitor when he wasn't, given what Rachel Reeves has said about being an economist when she wasn't, I do wonder now whether any kind of performances that Keir Starmer did as a barrister will turn out not to be true.
Mr Graham, these are mere inconsequential mistakes.
Jonathan Reynolds, by the way, who's run off to India to get out of the way, has apparently apologised and said that he's sorry that anybody misunderstood him when he said that he used to be a solicitor, because that's not what he meant.
I mean, he was clearly trying to make it blatantly clear that he was a trainee solicitor. Right.
Of course. Like you're also trainee numpty. You've now qualified as a full-time one. Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Good morning, Mike. It's great, isn't it? Not only have we got a president that annoys virtually half the world, all the half that we don't like, all the lefties, the Ed Davies of this planet, but we've also got a president that actually gets things done. Emmanuel Macron crawling over to the US, falling in line. Starmer's just going to do what's told by Trump to Macron that's going to happen. And then back in this country, We do nothing, and Yvette Cooper couldn't even crack an egg, yet alone crime.
Yes, I had the misfortune of putting on the Parliamentary channel yesterday because I was cooking something which took quite a long time, and I thought I'll just put this on in the background. My God, how many stupid questions and even more stupid answers did we see? We'll play a bit of that coming up in a moment. But also, for heaven's sake, let's talk about the Labour MP who's been jailed for 10 weeks. Mike Amesbury, 55 years old, told he ought to be a role model to others, but instead he didn't like one of his constituents, so he beat him to a pulp. And he's only gone to prison for 10 weeks. We'll find out what two-tier policing is all about, two-tier judging and two-tier sentencing as well. This is Morning Glory.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's a red letter day here at Talk because we're giving you the opportunity to get yourself a bumper sticker, and loads of you are sending in your email, your addresses, loads of you are sending in your details, so please do that because you can stick a bumper sticker on the back of the car. You can join the Common Sense Revolution and tell everybody else so they can immediately identify you as somebody with a brain, because I think there's a sad lack of brains at the moment in this government and in this country. But if you want to make sure that everybody knows how sensible you are and how with it you are, you get a bumper sticker from this show and basically tell everybody else. So here's what you do. Send us your address. We'll give you an email that you can send it to, but keep sending it in right now in any way you want. You can text it to us on 87222. You can I wouldn't put it on Twitter, to be honest, but you can send us it on a voicemail as well, 0344 499 1000. The best way to do it, though, is on an email, and we'll give you an email address as well, because so many of you are coming into us to get a free bumper sticker, which I'm very happy to give you, and there's absolutely no problem at all with that. Peter Blexley's here this morning. How about this? A great show and fantastic dynamic with Peter Blexley. I love it, says Alan in Middlesbrough. Keep him on longer than an hour, please. I'm afraid we can't afford to do that. Quick one, he says, I'll have you know a PPE qualification is a vital prerequisite for the current cabinet. Pork pie expertise. Yeah, absolutely. And Andy says the problem with Starmer reading from a piece of paper led to his infamous moment where he read his shopping list out, released the sausages, and he says you two are like the two Ronnies. I'm not sure that's a compliment, to be honest, but he is awful. Let's talk about this guy, Mark.
It's a huge compliment.
Well, the two Ronnies
compared to the titans of British comedy.
No, but hang on, we're not comedians. We're doing serious politics here. I mean, this is a serious show. I won't have you making fun of it
with a hint of humour.
This is entirely serious what we're doing here. You know, fixing the foundations. You know, it's got nothing to do with making fun of it. Former Labour MP sentenced at Chester Magistrates Court yesterday. Mike Amesbury. He was sentenced by District Judge Tanweer Ikram, who has been known in the past to be a little bit, shall we say, soft on crime and soft on the causes of crime. He's given him a 10-week sentence. I mean, this guy basically beat the hell out of a constituent who was lying on the ground.
Not long enough.
Not long enough at all.
Just not long enough.
No.
I'm sure many people will have seen the footage of Amesbury and his violent, completely unnecessary and unjustified assault on one of his constituents.
Yes.
How can you be elected into Parliament by constituents to serve them, to make the law, and then break the law so flagrantly, so viciously? And let me tell you, any experienced murder squad detective will tell you about how they worked on a one-punch murder.
Yes.
There are so many of them. people come out of boozers.
Funnily enough,
think they're having a fight.
Yes, absolutely right. And funnily enough, I mean, we have got a guest coming up on the show a little bit later on to talk about that one-punch rule, because Deanna Davidson is a big campaigner for that. Used to be an MP, now lives abroad, but she's got a message for us, which we'll play out later on. Basically, her father was killed by one punch.
Yeah.
And she's been a serious, advocate about that particular issue for a long time.
Yeah, and Amesbury repeatedly punches this man, causing injury to the elbow as well. It was absolutely an appalling, unnecessary attack. And to only get 10 weeks, what concerns me is that he probably won't serve 10 weeks.
Yeah.
He's going to get his MP's salary until Parliament.
He's going to get about 91,000 quid or something, isn't he?
Well, they get 91 grand a year, don't they?
Yeah.
So he's going to get paid while he's sitting there in the pokey.
Why is he not resigning? Apparently he's appealing as well. I don't know what he's appealing. What's he appealing?
Of course he will, because you know this, Mike, right? So many MPs on their 91 grand a year are so talentless that they wouldn't earn that sort of money anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's the highest amount of money they will ever get paid. Look at so many of the last lot who got turfed out and are now scratching around for a living because they can't walk into jobs, because they don't have the talent, the expertise, the personality to get other well-paid jobs.
Yes.
So, of course, he's going to cling on in a very undignified kind of way to his position and his salary.
Yeah, but what happened to honour? What happened to a man who has now made a massive mistake in his career, and it's time for him to apologise absolutely unreservedly to not only the man he punched, but to his constituents and to the country, because he's a public servant, and that's not how you behave.
Fall on his sword, resign.
Exactly. Let's have a by-election.
Do your bit of bird behind the doors, and then go and reinvent yourself and get another life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
we can't be having that. Absolutely extraordinary. This from Gary. He's in Shrewsbury. Morning, Mike. Could I please have one of your great stickers? Gary, yes, you can, but you've got to send us your address. And here's one way of doing it. If you can't figure out how to do it on the text, you can send us an email, feedback@talk.tv. feedback@talk.tv, and we'll find probably an even better way of getting to you. But if you send us an email there, put your name and address on, and we'll send you a sticker out forthwith. A couple of people saying, what if I haven't got a car? Stick it on your fridge. You can put it on your window if you want. There's a number of ways of communicating with the great British public to prove that you are not a drone, to prove that you're not a lefty, to prove that you are somebody who knows common sense when you see it, who recognises it, and this is a great revolution to be part of, Peter.
And treasures free speech.
Exactly right. Absolutely right. Let's talk about, have we got time, or should we? No, we haven't got time. Let's talk about Gaza and the BBC, because it turns out, thanks to a very, very good investigation by the Sun newspaper, the BBC paid £400,000 for the privilege of actually running this Gaza documentary, which has now been condemned by all and sundry. Everybody now knows that basically the BBC, I'm not even going to say they were hoodwinked, because I think they were complicit in knowing exactly what they were doing. They basically hired this kid, who is the son of a Hamas operative, to talk about how terrible life is in Gaza, because they're getting bombed by the Israelis every day. It now turns out it spent 400,000 quid on Hoyo Films, which was behind the documentary called Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone. The BBC forced to issue an apology and pull the programme from its iPlayer service. The question now being asked by Kemi Badenoch is, did any of this £400,000, which was paid for this documentary, make its way to Hamas?
So they might as well have got 400 grand and thrown it in the bin, the British Broadcasting Corporation, because that's where that documentary's gone. In the bin. Because there's been such a rightful and proper outcry about it, because in essence all it was a bit of Hamas propaganda.
Yeah, of course.
They make this documentary, let's show the world what life in Gaza is really like. Let's be fearless. Let's inform and educate the world, shall we? Which is what the BBC should do.
Yes.
So they get a 14-year-old boy whose father is a minister within Hamas to narrate and present. They have some other person of various dubious background to be a part of it, apparently whose grandfather was a founder of Hamas. And essentially, they create a bit of propaganda.
Yeah.
And push it out there, all funded by our licence fee money.
Yeah.
What a disgrace.
Yes.
Where's the due diligence? Where's the very basic checks? Who went to this production company and said, excuse me, have you done your homework?
Yeah.
Who is this
Why
kid?
wouldn't you?
Where's
I
he
said
come
this
from?
yesterday. If you're making something like that sort of documentary, wouldn't you surely say at the start of it, can we please make sure whoever we're using to narrate it, and to whoever we're making sure that is going to be the sort of the star of the show, if you like, is not in any way connected to Hamas? He must be an innocent Palestinian child.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't ask that question.
No, and it calls into doubt, I think, the very position of Davey, the head of the BBC. Many other people, I would imagine. This has to have gone across the desks, or should I say, onto the screens of many executives that will have watched it. And who asked about the due diligence? It would appear no one did. And Hoyer Films, who made it, how much did they actually spend on this documentary? Now, I get it. I understand production companies have to turn a profit, have got to pay their staff. They exist to make a profit. But I'd be very interested to know what the profit margin on this documentary was out of that 400 grand. How much was profit? How much did they actually spend on it?
Exactly right. Now, this may come as a surprise to you. I've only just thought of this, but do you know what an anagram of Hamas is?
Go on.
A sham.
Ah.
I mean, I
Very
can't believe
good.
I've only just noticed that.
Very good. Is that coming to a bumper sticker near you soon?
I might have to do that. Hamas is a sham. It is an absolute sham. It's 6:45. Amazingly, this hour is nearly over. We've got plenty to do, though. We're going to be talking about much, much more. Stephen says this: I wonder if our illustrious leader will be getting butt-kissing coaching before he goes to meet Donald Trump. He may use the same one Macron used. Possibly so. And here, one for you, Peter. So we're going to have a new bill on crime, says Claire, a crackdown on mobile phone thefts and e-bikes. How about knife crime and murder on our streets? Well, they're promising more bobbies on the beat, but are they still employing people with criminal records? It's a sham. There's that word again. Like they say, if you can't beat them, join them. I mean, that's the other thing. They're talking about bringing back community policing. That's what Yvette Cooper was banging on about yesterday. But who's going to do it?
I'm putting my hand up in the air, Governor. Can I speak, please?
Yes.
What a sham this 13,000 figure is.
Yeah.
It is deliberately deceptive. And, shamefully, some news outlets have pushed it as being 13,000 new police officers going into neighbourhood
It's only 4,
policing.
isn't it?
No, well, let me break it down. Roughly speaking, it is 4,000 police officers who are being diverted from other roles into neighbourhood policing. It is about 4,000 who are special constables. Hello, they are members of the public who volunteer to be police officers for guess how many hours a week?
4
hours a week. Congratulations, you get a bumper
sticker.
sticker.
I can't believe I knew that. I mean, thank you very much indeed. Bumper stickers are available from the home of Common Sense, by the way. Just send us your name and address and we'll send one out to you. Join the Common Sense revolution. Literally, it's going to sweep the nation, this. This is going to be bigger than anything you've ever seen. It's 6:47. I'm Mike Graham.
I've already said what Hamas did on September the 7th was appalling.
And the BBC haven't, Roger. You can't sit there and defend them if you won't answer them. They haven't, though, have they?
Hold on. What I'm
so
going to
I'm
tell
all
you
right
is
to
this.
say to you, why haven't the BBC said what you've said?
In Gaza, around about 50,000 people have been killed. about 2,000 of them were Israeli. So about 96%.
You're just throwing facts at me, but you won't answer the question. You're answering. Why won't the BBC call them Hamas a terrorist organisation? I'm just asking you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning Glory, coming up to very nearly 10 minutes to 7. I'm Mike Graham. Peter Blexley is here, of course. Let's get have we got a new voice note from Mark, or is that an old one? Oh, we have got a new one. Let's have a listen.
Morning, Mike. It's Mark in Lancashire. The small part you didn't show of Starmer's speech was that he opened it by saying it was a very simple message. I come here today to bring you a very simple message, which I have to read from a piece of paper because I am a total simpleton. If it's such a simple message, why can he not remember it? And also, part two, why is he bringing the king into it? This is a very sensitive geopolitical situation involving the EU, Russia, superpowers. The king's supposed to be politically neutral. It's absolutely outrageous that he's bringing the king into this. Shouldn't have done that. Stupid.
I think that's a good point, actually. He makes a very good point. And we'll come back to the robotic Prime Minister in a moment. But first, let's do a couple of other clips, because there's one here from yesterday's doings in Parliament. This is Desmond Swain MP, one of the Tories who managed to survive the cull of the last election. And he made rather a good joke about David Lammy, who, of course, has reversed his position on Donald Trump. He now supports Donald Trump in everything that he does, despite previously causing him a white supremacist and a racist. Here it is.
Does the Secretary of State regret recanting the original views that he expressed in assessing Trump? And can I urge him that when the time is right, and it certainly isn't any time now, he will consider following the example of Archbishop Cranmer by plunging the offending hand first into the flame?
Foreign Secretary.
This is a serious debate and a serious discussion, and I've said in a sense that's old news. There's so much news before us, and there's so much history to be forged. It requires diplomacy, it requires friendship, and it requires us understanding who the real threats are. And those real threats are those autocracies in the world that could do tremendous damage over the coming years, and I've always recognised that.
Oh, yeah. Have you always recognised that when you first had a go at Donald Trump and last time he was president? Also, that idiot over his left shoulder, Steve Doughty, I've had trouble with him in the past, sitting there like a nodding dog, nodding his head. You know, this is a guy who was, shall we say, hauled over the coals by the Parliamentary Standards Committee and the police when it turned out he'd ordered some temazepam, I think it was, from a friend of his during COVID because he was anxious. It's apparently an illegal thing to do. But he was let off.
This government's making me anxious.
Yes.
But I don't require meds for it just yet, I'm pleased to say.
Mm. Oh, well, apparently we've got the clip of what Lammy said about Donald Trump before. Let's have a look at that. That would be good.
We're marching because we are standing in solidarity with many Americans and communicating our huge, huge disapproval with this president. A president who's said awful things during London's lowest moments of terrorism, who has attacked our democratically elected Mayor Sadiq Khan, a president who has retweeted far-right hatred of Britain First, the hatred that saw the death of Joe Cox. For all of those reasons and so much more, people are coming out in droves today to make it absolutely clear that Donald Trump is not welcome in our country.
I welcome the election of Donald Trump. We look forward to working with Donald Trump at this tough geopolitical moment, recognising that 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. He got more votes from young people, African Americans, Latinos than the Republican Party have got for some considerable time. We have a special relationship with the United States. It doesn't matter who's in the White House or number 10, and we look forward to working with Donald Trump over the next 4 years.
How can you take these people seriously? Hypocrites, one and all.
I'm not very happy with you this morning, Mike.
Why is that?
Because during one of those clips from Lammy, he mentioned the name of the man who is the Mayor of London.
Yes.
And if there's anything guaranteed to trigger me this early in the morning, it's hearing his name.
Yes.
Because he's another Labour politician who does my crunch.
But he's also done a reverse ferret, old Sadiq Khan. He's now said that Donald Trump's welcome to come to London. In fact, he's looking forward to seeing him, apparently. If he stands next to him, Donald Trump won't even see him. He's that small.
Well, Donald Trump will be going, Sadiq, who never heard of him.
Yeah, he'll just look over that way and go, what's that? Oh, sorry, that's the guy down there. Big story on the front page of The Sun today. It's also on the front page of the Daily Mail. A 19-year-old killer who plotted a school massacre. This is a story that I've sort of slightly forgotten about. There's a teenager who's on trial right now. Basically, police said he was prevented from murdering more victims at his old primary school, fortunately. However, he did admit to killing his mother and two siblings at their home in Luton last year. Terrible story, this.
Horrendous. Nicholas Prosper, 19 years old.
Right.
Comes from Luton. Apparently, as a youngster, he was forever in his bedroom playing violent video games and expressing deeply concerning views about children, paedophilia and violence. So much so that one game platform, forgive me if I haven't got the terminology right, kind of locked him out, booted him out of it. But he didn't appear to come to the notice of the authorities, and it appears that he was allowed to hide away in his room forever, endlessly, hoovering up these violent images.
And being affected by them.
And tragically turning into a violent monster himself, killing his mum and brother and sister. Now, what fortunately happened, and I hope people don't think that's too distasteful, me using that word, what fortunately happened was that the police discovered the bodies. They were called by a neighbour at 5:30 in the morning. So the police screech round to the house, find all these victims, the 3 dead victims, and of course, no 19-year-old son or however old he was. They then put up a huge scream up to find this kid, this 19-year-old, and they swamped the area with officers, and as a result of that, he was found.
They apprehended him,
Yes, and when they searched nearby, they found a shotgun that he'd only bought the day before, illegally. Questions about who sold him that shotgun. I hope they get answered. I really want to know, because he didn't have a licence, who sold him that shotgun, and 30 shotgun cartridges. His intention was to go to his former primary school and commit a massacre.
Thank goodness. I mean, and that is when you know the police have done their job, and that is why, and you often say that as well, Peter, that there are some police, particularly the armed police, who are very, very good at what they do.
I can guarantee you that all the officers that swamped that area looking for that man, not all of them had guns.
No.
I bet the majority of them weren't armed. Some might have had a taser, but I reckon that some of them will only have been armed with a batten, maybe an incapacitant spray.
I watched that Panorama programme last night on the Southport situation, which was searing and awful and horrible just to watch it. It's in the papers as well today. We'll talk about it later on in the show. But the bravery of the police who went in to find this scumbag who was in murdering children. I mean, incredible work they were doing. And so I don't want to ever think that we don't praise the police when they get it right. It's just that they have managers and they have, sort of superintendents who run the place like it's not really actually working for the people.
Chiefs.
Exactly.
Pathetic chiefs. And it's a well-worn phrase. But police officers run towards situations that we would run away from.
Exactly.
And for that, they have my unending respect and gratitude.
And mine. We haven't mentioned this because it's going to be talked about later on in the show. Peter Blexley, thank you very much indeed for the last hour. Every single paper this morning in Britain has got a campaign on the front page. It's called Make It Fair. The government is looking to change the law to favour big tech platforms so they can use British creative content to power their AI models without our permission or without our payment. Let us protect the creative industries. It's only fair. And we're talking about movies, we're talking about television, we're talking about music, we're talking about books, we're talking about newspapers and journalism, and we're talking as well about what we do here at Broadcasting House. Of course, it's not called that, but what we do here at the Home of Common Sense, they want to nick it, and they can't. They can't do what I do. I'm sure they can't come up with a robot that can do what I do. We've got loads going on. If you want a bumper sticker, let us know. We're back after the news with Morning Glory.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in. An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. The sun is not quite up yet, but if you're not up yet, it's time you were, because there's a lot to be getting on with, quite frankly. First of all, the first thing you do is you get your name and you get your address, and you send it to us, and you get yourself a free bumper sticker from Morning Glory. It is the revolution of common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, you can identify yourself with it. Basically, there's 3 to choose from. You will get 1 sent to you at random. The Home of Common Sense, the place to be for when you need absolute and utter common sense. Mike Graham's Morning Glory, there's another one there. Get your bumper sticker by emailing us at feedback@talk.tv. If you want to send us a message in another way, just make sure you include your address and your name, and we will send one out to you today. And before the end of the week, you'll be driving around with pride, showing you know exactly where the bodies are buried, and you know exactly what you're doing. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We're going to talk about Emmanuel Macron's visit to America yesterday, to the White House. We're going to talk about Donald Trump talking about visiting Russia. We're going to talk about Donald Trump inviting Volodymyr Zelensky in to do a peace deal. Also, we'll be talking about Keir Starmer, who, of course, is going over there for Thursday for a meeting with Donald Trump as well. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Andrew.
Morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth. I've ordered me bumper sticker for the revolution that is happening, and it will be displayed on the front of my taxi everywhere I go. Keep up the great work, everyone.
Brilliant stuff, Andrew. Well done, that man. He's going to put a bumper sticker, maybe send him two, put one on the front of the car and on the back of the taxi as well. That's absolutely where we want to be. We want to show people that we know what is going on, that we know what we're doing. And you know what? Despite all of the depressing news, despite all of the nastiness and ghastliness of this government, we are actually fighting back. We're showing we're fighting back by showing that we are members of the home of common sense right here at Talk TV. Ryan Saby's coming up, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun. There's a big campaign going on in the papers this morning. Make it fair. It's all about the big tech companies who are trying to steal all sorts of content. They're basically trying to make sure that if you don't do anything about it, they will nick what you write. They will nick what you sing. They will nick what movies you make. They will nick what television programmes you make. They will nick what newspaper articles you come up with. And they might even try and nick what we do right here on Talk TV, Talk Radio, because they want to do what we can do, and they want to do it cheaper. And we want to say, make it fair, and let us not put up with that. Lots more to talk about. Coming up tonight, by the way, some revolutionary stuff as well is going on. Kevin O'Sullivan, of course, from 7 o'clock every single night. A great show. He's going to be on YouTube tonight. He's going to be on Alexa. He's going to be on all the connected devices. But on radio tonight, it's a new thing. We're going to be showing a football match. 7 o'clock, Wolves take on Fulham, and on Wednesday, Liverpool face Newcastle. Both fixtures live and exclusive right here on Talk. This is Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. Let's get it on. Mark says this morning, Mr. Graham, great show. Put me down for a bumper. I will do, Mark, but you've got to send us your address. And one here from Lynn in the West Midlands. Morning, Mike. Great show. I worked for 50 years and I'm now a pensioner. I've never felt so depressed in my entire life, and I honestly cannot even think about what state this country will be in another 4 years' time. Well, we are going to be fighting the good fight. I tell you that, Lynn, and I can guarantee you that it will not be as bad as you think, because we will be the people who will help you through it. I absolutely make that promise to you, and you should be absolutely and utterly sure that that will be the case. We've got lots going on this morning, though. Lots to talk about. Keir Starmer off to America on Thursday. Emmanuel Macron was over in the White House yesterday. We're also going to talk about the BBC and that terrible, awful documentary they did a week or so ago, in which they used the son of a Hamas operative to narrate a story about how poor the Palestinians are. Absolutely extraordinary. We've also got the police and crime bill going through the Parliament today. Let's talk to our man, who is, of course, at The Sun, Deputy Political Editor. He is Ryan Saby. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
First of all, I suppose we've got breaking news. Ofgem has said the energy price cap is going to rise by 6.4% from April. That is a big rise, and that is more than double what the 3% inflation is right now. We were told, I think, last week it's going to go up on average by about £85 per household, but 6.4%, where do they get that from?
Yeah, no, that's a lot of money. This will be looking at projected costs for the energy firms and the projected costs of that energy that have to be met by consumers. I understand that government are going to be they have a winter sort of fuel fund that will be giving some households £150 that will go towards that. But as you say, when inflation's running at 2.7%, just under sort of around 3%, and you've got that big rise there from, as Ofgem have announced, that 6% is really going to hit people in the pocket, and people are going to struggle, as they have done. over the last few years or so as we've seen the energy crisis, and that's why you hear politicians from around from all stripes, and you hear the energy sector itself actually say we have to grow, we have to have our own energy sources here, and we just can't rely on importing them, and also the cost of importing them, and the fact that actually it's not particularly environmentally friendly to import them. So actually, let's start at home with some of that.
Absolutely right. And also, is it not the case that Ed Miliband, the so-called green energy minister, keeps talking about the reason why prices are going up as fast as they are is because we don't have our own renewable energy campaign going on? But actually, what everybody knows is that one of the reasons, and he keeps blaming fossil fuels for it, but the reason that the prices actually are not even higher is because of fossil fuels.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, what we have to do is try and have a mix of energy sources. I saw there's a letter by parliamentarians yesterday talking about how shale gas and fracking, our only viable site at the moment in this country, is actually going to be concreted over from the end of June. And we got again parliamentarians calling for this and a reversal of that decision, because if they think that we can tap into some of our resources here, such as fracking, that we'll be able to hopefully bring down bills, and we won't have to rely on the imports from overseas. So yes, it seems like there's a lot of pressure on Ed Miliband to actually reverse some of the decisions that he's made.
Yeah, absolutely right. Let's talk about the police and crime bill, because that's coming in today. An awful lot of news and information in it. I mean, when you read it, and I read it last night, it looks as though it's a great idea. It looks as though, you know, clamping down on shoplifting, clamping down on e-bikes and their misuse, clamping down on knife crime, you know, making sure the streets are safer for everybody. It all sounds like a good idea, but is it something they can actually fulfil and carry out?
I think we're just going to have to wait and see on this, because I think that the trouble is, it's all very well and good saying, oh, if you have your mobile phone stolen and you have a tracking device and you can work out that it's in, you know, someone down the road in their property, if you can get the police to say, if you can go to the police and say, look, I know exactly where it is, I've got the address, are the police actually going to do anything about it? Now, the politicians yesterday were talking about this golden hour of when property is stolen. That's the moment to get the police to act. But phoning up 999 or the police, or going into the police station and getting them to actually do something, is going to be a whole different matter. So I think everything in this bill, whether it comes to knife crime, taking e-bikes or scooters that are a menace to a lot of people up and down the country off the streets, I think it's well-meaning, but actually in practical terms, especially when police forces are talking about they're not having enough funding to get on with the bread and butter issues and the things they need to get on with, I think there may be a gap between what the politicians want and what the police will actually be able to deliver in reality.
And this seems to be the trouble, doesn't it, with this Labour government? They say a lot of things and they announce a lot of things, but in fact, nothing really changes. I mean, they came out the other day with their story about the NHS, 2 million more appointments, you know, we're fixing the foundations, we're making sure that, you know, the waiting lists are going down. Everybody could see that that wasn't really true, because they were comparing a period of activity versus a period the previous year of a strike that was going on in the NHS. And, you know, it doesn't feel to most people who go in on a daily basis to try and find a doctor's appointment or try and go to A&E, doesn't feel as though they're making anything better. And this will be the same. People will not feel safer on the streets just because of this bill.
No, I think that's the thing. And I think when you look at whether it's crime, whether it's the NHS, and you know, particularly something like the economy as well, when we talk about, you know, maybe GDP figures, Britain, you know, is increasing its GDP by 1.5%, 0.75%, whatever it may well be. I'm not sure that really matters to people that much. It's how better off they feel in the pocket. So whether it comes to whether you can get a GP appointment, whether you can get good treatment when you go to your go to A&E if you need to go there, people actually need to feel that difference. And I think it's just going to take time. This government has been in power for 7 or 8 months. So actually, maybe give them some time. It's very unforgiving government, but sometimes things take a while just for that legislation to go through. and for people to actually feel that difference.
Yeah, well, we could give him 10 weeks, which is the same amount of time that suspended Labour MP Mike Amesbury's just got in jail. He's been sentenced to 10 weeks after punching a man in the street. He's going to get his full pay while he's still in prison. Apparently he's appealing. I'm not quite sure what he's appealing exactly. Should he not be standing down, and should there not be a by-election now?
Well, you would have thought so, but I think in this situation, Mike Amesbury will probably cling on for dear life. We've had examples of MPs in the past carrying on. He's going to be paid his £90,000+ a year salary. He's an independent MP, so actually it doesn't matter too much what Sir Keir Starmer says to him, despite him being a former Labour MP. I understand there could be a recall petition where if there's I think it's 10,000 votes in the constituency, that there could be it could actually lead to a recall and then go to a by-election. I think then you have the very interesting thing where Reform are going to be breathing down the neck of Labour in this seat up in Runcorn. We had yesterday the Tory Party chairman Nigel Huddleston. He was saying that Mike Amesbury should actually do the right thing and stand down, but I just feel that an MP who's perhaps his job prospects don't look too good after this will just carry on taking the money for as long as they can.
Yeah, absolutely right. And let's talk finally about Jonathan Reynolds. He's off in India at the moment, supposedly talking about doing some kind of trade deal with the Indian government. He basically spoke for the first time about his claim to have been a solicitor. He said he's sorry if people had misunderstood what he said. I mean, nobody misunderstood what he said. He said he was a solicitor. He said it in Parliament. He said it in various interviews. He said it on his LinkedIn CV. And he made sure that everybody knew that he had been a solicitor when he wasn't. So I'm not sure what he means by saying people had misunderstood. He says, I've never presented myself as a qualified solicitor. I've made repeated references to being a trainee solicitor in government press releases, on social media, covered very extensively in the legal press. Well, let's have a look at what he actually said in Parliament.
Before the last election, I worked as a solicitor in Manchester city centre, and I would travel in to Manchester every day from what is now my constituency.
He said he worked as a solicitor. According to his apparent apology yesterday, he says, I don't think it's a huge deal, but I should apologise for that if anyone has misunderstood that. But I don't think they have. I mean, is this guy some kind of Walter Mitty figure? Is he mentally unwell? What's wrong with him?
Well, it does seem to be very black and white there. We go back to there with that clip from when Jonathan Reynolds first became an MP, and it's clear as day. So I think you'll have some calls, not only with Jonathan Reynolds making that apology, a public apology yesterday. I think he may have to come back to the Commons, just clarify the record. Now, I see the industry body, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, have actually said that they may be looking into this a little bit further, because I think misrepresenting, being a solicitor is a big deal. Now, he's trying to do his best to clear it up, but I think there still needs to be some way to go.
Well, I think so. I mean, I can't believe this guy will survive the next reshuffle. He should be out of a job now, shouldn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got the confidence of Sir Keir Starmer at the moment. I think Sir Keir has bigger fish to fry at the moment. But, I think when you look at that next reshuffle, you wonder whether people like Jonathan Reynolds could be at the top of the list. But I think one thing it would be wise to do is probably come back to Parliament and just make it abundantly clear exactly what position he had, just to correct the records to parliamentarians.
Well, I mean, he clearly misled Parliament. He clearly lied to Parliament. For my money, he should be sacked. It's simple as that. Good to talk to you. Ryan Sabey, thank you very much indeed. Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, of course. Much more to do throughout the course of the day here. Let's get a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mike. It's Nick Moore from Loughborough. The clip you just showed where Desmond Swain was taking the mickey out of David Lammy with a perfectly reasonable question shows just how politicians react when they receive a question from the hip rather than a question that they're well aware of, as in Prime Minister's Question Time. Prime Minister's Question Time has become a joke. because the questions are already announced to the recipient of the question, and the answer is prepared, which is why we get a load of cobblers spoken in response to the questions asked. Anyway, just think that's quite an interesting comparison. Have a good day.
Nick, you're absolutely right. Thank you very much indeed. They don't react well to questions, as you say, that are presented to them on the hoof. I mean, look at Keir Starmer. The idea that he can't even make any kind of statement whatsoever to the public without reading it from a piece of paper. We'll play you that in a little while. Don't forget, this is the home of common sense. You can now join the revolution of common sense. You can get yourself a bumper sticker to put on the back of your car, stick it on your fridge, stick it wherever you want, basically. But this will identify you as somebody sensible. This will identify you as somebody who has joined the revolution and who is against all of the nonsense that we are given to believe by this government and by various other politicians who don't seem to have a clue what they're doing. It's a bumper sticker that shows you watch Morning Glory. It shows that you are in tune with the sensible people of this country, and all you got to do is send us your name and your address to feedback@talk.tv. You can send it in a variety of other ways as well if you want, but that's the best way to do it. Feedback@talk.tv, name and address, and we will send you out forthwith this very day a bumper sticker which provides you with the ability to understand that you're part of this revolution that we're forming here at Talk. How about this, says Sean. Hi Mike, great show. Will the bumper stickers stick onto Cairns Underground trains? Just asking for a friend. I couldn't possibly comment. I've got no idea if they would stick to that. But you know, if you want one, just order it. And here's one from Ian, because coming up we're going to talk to Lance Foreman about the BBC and that dreadful Gaza documentary. If the BBC is found to have given money to Hamas, is it illegal to give money to someone who funds a terrorist organisation? As that means I don't have to pay my TV licence fee. I think that's a very good point. We'll find out from Lance Foreman. This is Talk.
So did money change hands, and has the state broadcaster, our licence fee money, moved to a member of a prescribed terrorist organisation? And as you say, that's just a start.
Yeah.
Because the other members in, you know, I mean, the two girls in the documentary, their father worked for the Hamas police, the Gaza police, the Hamas enforcers. Another child was seen holding a gun, standing next to Hamas terrorists. Basically, everywhere we turn, there's a Hamas link.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:22. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. As we've said before, this is the home of common sense. It's the revolution of common sense. If you want to be part of it, get yourself a bumper sticker. Talk to us. Send us an email, feedback@talk.tv with your name and address, and we'll send one out to you. Here's one from Dan in Kent. Morning, Mike. I've got to give the BBC a bit of credit for the documentary last night on the story of Gaza. There's 2 more episodes and the 2 coming Mondays. It's a far cry from a shameful documentary inside Gaza. I don't know about that, but what I do know is we're about to talk to Lance Foreman, and a story on the front page of the Telegraph today says a cameraman on the BBC's controversial Gaza documentary appeared to celebrate the October the 7th massacre. This is a guy called Hatem Rawag, who was listed as an additional cameraman on the film, posted 2 tweets apparently praising the worst terror attack in Israel's history. He appeared to applaud the killing of an Israeli soldier, sharing a video of a gunman that he said should be watched 1 million times. Quite sickening, quite ghastly, quite appalling. Meanwhile, it turns out that the BBC paid 400,000 quid to have this controversial Gaza documentary, which used the voice and the narration of a boy who's the son of a Hamas operative. Incredible stuff. Let's talk to Lance Foreman, a man who has been talking about why the BBC needs to be sanctioned for quite some time. Lance, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning to you, Mike.
I mean, it's hard to believe that you and I are even having this conversation in this day and age, but you and I have had many of these conversations in the past. This perhaps is the most egregious crime I think the BBC has committed against Israel in a history of many crimes against them.
Well, I wouldn't say it's the most egregious. I mean, they've been pretty egregious for the last 20 to 30 years, but this is the most obvious. They've become so brazen now that, you know, that they're not even watching their backs anymore. So this one just sort of slipped out there, and it was very easy to pick up where they'd been going wrong. You know, obviously paying £400,000 to essentially to provide Hamas propaganda, possibly some of that money fed through to Hamas. It's not only egregious, it's actually criminal. And I've sort of come to the conclusion now that, you know, it's enough of investigations. We actually need to start criminal prosecutions against perhaps board members of the BBC. You know, this has been going on for 20 to 30 years now. And they, you know, there have been inquiries. You know, Kemi Badenoch asked for an inquiry. There was an inquiry 20 years ago called the Balin Report, but it's never been made public. In fact, the BBC spent £500,000 of licence fee payers' money to make sure that the thing never saw the light of day. There was a report only last year by a lawyer called Trevor Asserson, which proved statistically that the BBC are, you know, biased against Israel, just like the Balin Report. You know, it's obvious now, and you know, it's too late for inquiries. We now need criminal prosecutions. You know, trying to justify what Hamas do. They're a proscribed terrorist organisation. Trying to justify it, which is exactly what the BBC do, is a criminal offence under the Terrorism Act 2000.
And paying criminals and paying terrorists presumably is also a criminal offence, because Danny Cohen, the former head of BBC Television, has also said this week it's a week of shame for the BBC. There are questions they must answer as to whether or not this documentary was misleadingly edited. Further concerns about statements released by the corporation initially when they were asked about it, when they said that they had full editorial control of the programme. And then, you know, they never... I mean, I don't know much about how BBC documentaries get through a process, but I'm pretty sure they'll go through several processes before they reach the air. So people must have known that this boy that was used, Abdullah, was the son of a Hamas operative, surely.
Well, that's true, but I think the payment actually is a bit of a red herring, because, you know, yes, the BBC paid £400,000 towards, you know, Hamas or, you know, their chums. But quite frankly, the British government pays £129 million to UNRWA. You know, the UNRWA schools, you know, there were UNRWA members that were involved in the hostage taking, involved in the murders, involved of keeping hostages over the last 18 months. And yet the British government is paying UNRWA. UNRWA is, you know, they set up schools where these Gazan children are taught to hate Jewish people. You saw those kids on the stage, on that stage where a baby, a 9-month-old baby and a 4-year-old toddler were brutally murdered. They were there in coffins, and yet the Gazan children dancing around. Well, they've all been taught at UNRWA schools, and we're funding them.
It is extraordinary.
So, maybe the British government should be taken to task for funding terrorism. The British taxpayers are funding this stuff, Mike. It's crazy.
It really is incredible. There's going to be some kind of demonstration, I think, today or tomorrow outside of BBC headquarters. But
it is.
I mean,
7 p.m. today. Yeah.
If indeed it turns out that money did change hands and money can be proven to have been passed to Hamas, surely Tim Davies' position is untenable, isn't it, as the Director General?
I think we've gone further than heads will roll. I actually genuinely think there need to be, criminal investigations into whether we have been justifying Hamas and therefore justifying a prescribed terrorist organization. I think the police need to be brought in at this stage. You have to ask the question, that the BBC have essentially been a mouthpiece for Hamas over 20 years. And you have to think, why has that happened? Why do Hamas do this? Hamas don't have a strong army. If the Israelis wanted to wipe out Hamas, they could do it very easily. What Hamas do, though, is they use children as human shields. We've heard it many times before. So they know the Israelis don't want to kill children. They know that. But sometimes children get, killed because they're put out in front there, as I say, as human shields. Yeah. But why do Hamas do this? Because it's not going to help them win the war. Why do they do it? They do it because they know that the BBC will publicise it to gain sympathy for them. It's almost as though the BBC is the bullet in their weapon.
Yeah.
Because if the BBC didn't publicise the fact that these children, it's terrible that these children are being killed. But if the BBC didn't publicise it, Hamas wouldn't do it because there'll be no advantage to them in doing it. So Hamas are complicit. The BBC are sort of complicit. They're partners. And the reason why the BBC are so awful is because they are seen globally as the standard bearers of journalism. And if they do it, everybody else does it. And the result of this, Mike, is that we now have, not just in Britain, but across the world, anti-Semitism at its worst ever level since the 1930s. And this is all down to the BBC's delegitimization and demonization of Israel. It's absolutely shocking, and I think we really need to sort of look very hard into this and potentially criminal prosecutions.
Yeah, and there are continued equivalents that they keep doing on their TV news shows, thanks to people like Jeremy Bowen, who used to be quite sensible but has now gone completely gaga on Gaza, if you'll pardon that sort of alliteration. They can't be trusted anymore to be completely neutral, because they seem to think that letting out prisoners from Israeli jails who have been put there because of the committing of crimes that they've done, in many ways, in many cases, terrorist crimes, which have caused the deaths of thousands and thousands of people. They think that's equivalent to letting out children and dead children and mothers and old people who have been taken hostage and kept underground for more than 500 days. I mean, it seems extraordinary to me that even in any world of journalism that you would make that connection.
Well, yes, and there's another issue in terms of equivalence, because when the BBC come under attack about their bias, their standard response is, well, we get just as many complaints against, saying that we're biased against Israel as we do that we're in favour of Israel. Now, the fact of the matter is, there are somewhere between perhaps 4 to 5 million Muslims in the UK.
Yeah.
A poll was done a year ago which showed that 3/4 of Muslims in the UK don't think that Israel should exist. Now, there are only about 200 to 250,000 Jews. So, there's 15 times as many Muslims as there are Jews. So just saying you get equal numbers of complaints on both sides isn't good enough. You need 15 times more complaints on the other side for it to be balanced.
Yeah.
So the BBC, the BBC have been playing this game for a long, long time. Hopefully this film is the catalyst that draws a line under it. I'm not sure that it will be, but I think we need to go in really hard now. I was very, very pleased with Kemi Badenoch's statement that that unless something is done about this, that at least the Conservative Party, they're not in government, but they're not going to support the licence fee anymore. It's enough with the BBC now. Something has got to change.
Do you think Tim Davie should resign over this?
Well, it's not just Tim Davie. This is perhaps yes, but this is an institutional problem within the BBC. It's not just Tim Davie. There are other members of the board. I did a very, very quick investigation myself a few days ago, looking up, all the different board members of the BBC, and there are some questions to be asked with some of them. But it's not just the BBC. I know Jewish people that work in the BBC, and they are afraid to speak out. They're afraid because they know that there's an institutional bias and an institutional problem there. There was a march. Do you remember about a year ago? There was a march against campaigning, against anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And the BBC refused to allow any of their staff to attend that rally.
Yes, I do remember that, yeah. Amazing.
Do you remember that? It was ridiculous, Mike.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But the BBC have been involved in so many cover-ups over the years, whether it was, Jimmy Savile or, Hugh Edwards recently, Martin Bashir. The anti-Israel bias is just another, it's another thing that they buried, they covered up. I really would like the Balin report to come out, because it was produced 20 years ago, so yeah, it's perhaps out of date now, but it would have made recommendations, and I would like to see whether the BBC followed those recommendations, because I very much doubt they did.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think time has come for a proper and serious, investigation into what it is that they have been doing for all this time. You're absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Lance Foreman there, thank you very much indeed. Former MEP, of course, former Brexit Party MEP as well. This is an incredible situation. Hard to believe that the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, supposedly the jewel in the crown of British media. I mean, I know that's a laughable conversation to be even putting forward, but they're supposed to be the neutral organisation that they used to be. The BBC used to be a great company that was looked up to, a company that was kind of the gold standard, if you like, of news coverage around the world. Now it's just a joke. It's an anti-Semitic joke, and I'm afraid that is all it is. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Sam.
Mike, awesome show. Starmer and his big piece of primary school paper. Don't they have auto cues, for God's sake? I mean, it's the 21st century, isn't it? Jeez.
Should we have a look at it? Because we haven't seen it for about an hour or so. Here's Keir Starmer talking about the rather large, important story at the moment, which is all about Ukraine and Russia. This is on the eve of his visit to the United States of America. Have you ever seen Donald Trump holding a piece of paper? No, you haven't. Check this guy out.
The UK is with you today and every day. From His Majesty the King to the NHS workers volunteering in hospitals in Ukraine, to the communities that took Ukrainian refugees to their heart. And that's why I signed our 100-year partnership with President Zelensky last month, because we believe in Ukraine's fight today and the country's incredible potential to thrive in the years to come.
I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to say, so I'm going to read it from a piece of paper. Why are there NHS people volunteering in Ukraine when we don't have enough NHS people volunteering in hospitals here? And why have you mentioned a king who doesn't appear to have anything to do with Ukraine at all? My name is Keir Starmer, and I'm going to America soon. I'm going to take my wife with me. I'm going to get some new glasses from Lord Alley and a new suit as well. You'll be pleased to know. And then, when I go to see Donald Trump, I'm going to tell him what I think of him, and he'll have to do exactly as I say. It's hard to believe that is the leader of the British nation, isn't it? What an absolute plank. If you want to join the home of common sense, and I know you do, get yourself a bumper sticker and stick it on the back of your car and prove to everybody that you know where the bodies are buried. And all you have to do, send it to feedback@talk.tv. Send us your name, send us your address. We'll send you a bumper sticker and you can absolutely show that you are part of the new elite You know, never mind the old elites, the ones that the champagne socialists who make fun of everybody who's working class and poor, who doesn't know anything and who might vote reform. Take this, the home of common sense, stick it on the back of your car and tell everybody that this is who you are. One from Jackie says, Mike, I'm hopping mad. Had the Labour thug MP been a Conservative, not only would we have been hounded out, but the incumbent Prime Minister as well. Two-tier media as well in this country. Keep up the free speech on our behalf. Yeah, exactly right. That's what we're doing. Join the home of common sense. This is Talk. Coming up next, we're going to find out what's going on in the world of illegal migration. Of course, it's not going terribly well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer back, of course, as well. She's going to be bringing you all sorts of things that are going on throughout the course of the day. We're talking this morning about a great many things, including Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron meeting in Washington yesterday. We've, of course, got Andrew Neil coming up on the show later on this morning. He wrote a column in the paper today in the Mail about the rearming of Europe. We've just been talking about the BBC paying £400,000 for that ridiculously biased documentary that they put out a week ago yesterday. Also, the police and crime bill is going on today as well, in which supposedly the police are going to clamp down on shoplifters, they're going to clamp down on knife crime, they're going to clamp down on all manner of crime that is committed right now in this country. What they won't do is say who's responsible. Even yesterday, Yvette Cooper was being asked questions about the idea that some people are coming to this country from foreign parts of the world who may have bad intent, shall we say, and she said, well, of course, we are very, very careful to make sure that any terrorist activity is very much watched from all sides, from whomsoever it may come, she said. Never mind whether it's Islamist, she said it might be from the far right. Let's talk now, though, to Alp Mehmet, who's chairman of Migration Watch, because, of course, we still have thousands of people in this country, hundreds of thousands maybe. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they want. And even if they're not terrorists and even if they're not criminals, they are definitely a drain on our economy. Alp, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. I mean, the big story today is that suddenly these delivery companies have woken up to the idea that actually the people driving your Uber, the people delivering your Uber Eats, the people delivering your Deliveroo or your Just Eats or whatever it is you're getting sent to your house may not be who they say they are. I mean, we've been saying this for years and they've all denied it for years, but now apparently they've accepted that it's true and they've now started sacking people.
Well, I won't hold my breath. The fact is that it's so open to abuse. And bear in mind, Mike, what you said earlier about the number of people here that we don't know about, the number of people here who are here illegally. There's our latest estimates that we've looked at, having considered how they might become part of the illegal population of this country. We believe that there's something between 1.5 to 2 million people here who have no right to be here.
Yeah.
And this sort of scheme whereby people register for the app and then can respond when people order through Deliveroo or Uber Eats or Just Eat. And there's about 150,000 of these riders. And where most of them may well be genuine, the fact is that it's possible for them to sell on or to hire out their certificates, if you like, hire these out to anyone who comes along. And that's where it lends itself to abuse, and anyone being able to suddenly pitch up on your door who poses a danger, particularly to women.
Right. Well, this is the thing. I mean, we've got the police and crime bill being introduced today. Yvette Cooper was hinting at it yesterday. I've seen what they're supposedly going to be unveiling. And in no place in that police and crime bill do they acknowledge that some of the rise in crime in this country has been caused by people who have come from elsewhere, who are illegally here, who are probably in some senses already on a list for deportation, but are not going anywhere. And simply all they're doing is hanging around and committing crime, whether it's stealing your phone, whether it's stealing from a shop, whether it is stealing from a car, whether it is even more serious, some kind of sexual crime of assault or rape or something like that. You know, the government doesn't appear to have any appetite for even collecting that sort of data so that we can know who the bad guys are.
Well, yeah, not only that, they don't actually tell us who the people committing these crimes are. We never know unless we FOI it, Freedom of Information applications. We don't know what the nationalities are of those who are committing these crimes very often. And that's wrong, I think. All of this, all it does is encourage illegal migration. People who pay a lot of money to the smugglers who the government is not going to smash. They haven't got a hope in hell's chance of smashing the gangs that help and enable those who want to come here and stay illegally. That's not going to happen in exactly the same way that they won't really do anything about identifying those who are here illegally and removing them.
Right.
Partly because they can't, having identified them, and even those they do identify, what happens, they appeal against refusal, against removal, they claim their human rights, and ultimately either are allowed to stay, or it takes so long to get rid of them, frankly, that they end up staying here forever.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And the more that those people have success doing that, the more people will come behind them. We already know, don't we, that some asylum seekers, or shall we say illegal migrants, have already managed to get members of their family to come and join them on the basis that not that they're living here and that they've been given settled status, but that they're still claiming asylum or seeking it, but they're allowed to bring people in while they're doing that.
Yes, well, that's where their human rights come into play, you understand. And even where, as we found recently, only a couple of weeks ago, where people have entered through a particular scheme, the Ukraine scheme, suddenly one of our immigration judges decides that scheme, which was intended for a particular group, is actually properly available to everyone else who asks for it. It's just that whole system is so open. It's so open to abuse that all it does is encourage people to come here, and encourages the smugglers who are not going to be caught to get a lot of money, make themselves very rich from charging huge amounts to get people here illegally. And even those who enter legally, their ultimate aim quite often is to stay here by hook or by crook and get a job and bring their family here.
Yes, I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? How about, you know, the idea of actually, you know, putting down a marker and saying, look, from this moment on, we will not be accepting any more illegal migrants, in the same way that other countries are starting to do, and the way that Australia did, and just say, look, if you come here illegally, as they're saying in America, you will never be able to stay.
Yeah, and that There was a lot of debate a few days ago about the government ostensibly giving guidance and saying that anyone who comes here illegally or stays illegally is not going to get British citizenship. Well, yeah, of course that should happen, but it's not going to discourage those who arrive in dinghies or anyone who arrives legally and stays on. What's going to happen to them in 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time? That really, I think, is a fuss that the government has probably generated just to show that they're acting tough. At the moment, all you can say is that what the government has done, and even the proposed legislation that is now going through, that's not going to do anything at all, in my view, but certainly not very much to stem the tide of illegality and certainly illegal crossings across the channel.
No, quite right. Alp, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alp Mehmet there from Migration Watch, chairman of Migration Watch, talking about the problems with dealing with not only the people who are still coming, but the people who are already here. Absolutely unbelievable. Morning, Mike, says Steve from Ipswich. If I put one of your bumper stickers on my car, will I get my car towed away by Sadiq Khan? Have my face logged on the Welsh Police Facial Recognition Squad? Have the Manchester CID knock on my door and issue me with a non-crime hate incident? Will I end up on a terror watch list? If so, I'll have 2 stickers, please. Brilliant. Just send your details in to us. The best way to do it, I kid you not, is to email us, feedback@talk.tv. I know many of you are sending your details in other ways, and that's fine. We will be able to process them, but there's so many coming in now. So many people want these stickers. They are the hot topic, the hot ticket, if you like, the hot sticker of the day, of the week, of the year. You want to be part of the home of common sense. The revolution is going on. Get yourself emailing us right now, feedback@talk.tv. We'll send one out to you with absolute and utter pleasure. Let's get a voice note from Dan.
Morning, Mike. Dan from West Yorkshire here. Brilliant show as usual. You're all right saying that we wouldn't get a robot to do what you do. I thought that about the Prime Minister about a year ago. Have a great day, bud.
Yeah, very true. Fixing the foundations. I will be reading from a script very shortly when I go to see the Prime Minister of France and of Germany. And he just, you can't believe it, can you? You literally can't. Lewis says this: I stopped using Uber Eats during COVID because the drivers were eating mine and my daughter's food and giving us the leftovers. What? Are you serious? The restaurants won't give you a refund. You can't touch the drivers once they've been delivered. That's extraordinary. Mike says, Gary in Leeds, am I in danger of getting a knock on my door for having a TV licence funding terrorism? Can I legally cancel my licence? Well, I think you're absolutely within your rights to write to the BBC and say to them, look, given that you are now being accused of paying a terrorist organisation for a documentary that you ran a week ago on Monday, I am now withholding my licence fee money on the grounds that I may be incriminating myself by being part of a criminal organisation. I think that's a perfectly legitimate letter to write and will probably cover you legally if you get fined for not paying it. Don't know, just a guess. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Coming up, what have we got going on? Alan Miller's going to be joining us. He's from Together, of course, the Declaration organisation, which is trying to make sure that we fight for our freedoms and we keep our freedoms. He'll get a free bumper sticker as well. This is Talk.
think the NHS bosses have said you don't get this online, you've got to be doing this under the care of a doctor who's seen you directly. But also they're saying you shouldn't take these jabs unless you really need them. So there's that trade-off of there may be adverse effects, but the impact of your obesity is such that has a big adverse effect. But I know a lot of people who, frankly, have got a little bit of a tummy and don't want to just give up, the odd donut or slice of pizza, who are using these drugs. That can't be a good thing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer is back, of course. Martin says, this great show, listen to you every day from YouTube channel. Thanks for keeping me sane. Well, that's what we try to do. Get yourself a bumper sticker and you can have one out there showing everybody that you are part of the home of common sense. Let's talk now to Alan Miller, though, co-founder of the Together Declaration. Lots to talk about, Alan, and we haven't got a lot of time, I'm afraid. But one of the things we want to talk about is the government spending £403 million of UK taxpayers' money on interpretation and translation in various different government departments between 2020 and 2025. 300 contracts, ludicrous waste of money. They tell us we haven't got any money and they have to tax us more. They have to put taxes on farmers. Why don't they try and save a bit of money, Doge style, like Elon Musk's doing?
I think it's really important that we get a reckoning with what's going on with the public sector, Mike. There's so much inefficiency on the one hand, bureaucracy and ideology, and not enough front of line attention. So this is another example of a couple of things that we need to discuss and openly deal with in Britain, like the question of integration, the question of are people being welcomed into Britain and are people being encouraged to speak English or not? Where do we stand on these values and virtues of being British and the Enlightenment and all of these things that we talk about? And also, when we talk about, it's not just like for like, because obviously you could get like 11,000 junior doctors. If you replace this, you could get, something like 10,000 border police. But it's a wider question about what we're actually doing. It's our political culture. It's what's going on in the public sector. It's similarly, we know that there's been a lot of waste across the board, Mike. We know that billions were spent on lockdowns and on positions that were unnecessary and wrong. But we need to get a grip of all of this now. We know that ideology is being imposed across the board in the public sector, in education and elsewhere. We want a reckoning, a proper audit, accounting, and we need to assess how we make a lot of money in Britain, right? But we have an enormous amount of our resources that are being allocated and depleted. And I don't think the general public's happy about it. They keep voting and saying things about what they want and getting ignored. I think the other thing is that you see examples of like this current government who completely have no grasp of economics and are tone deaf. So when you do get an opportunity to deal with things financially, they then go and attack the heart of our economy, right? Whether that's in terms of businesses and family businesses or the farmers with IHT. Yeah. So I think this is part of a package. This situation that we've got where you're not allowed to ask questions about things like translation services and the amount of money you're spending on it, because somehow if you do that, you're accused of being a racist or far right in the similar way that you talk about borders or the question of integration. But we need to assess and evaluate these things openly and honestly. Only yesterday, Mike, we saw a Democratic meeting attacked, where people were attacked, where we've got elected members of Parliament, and yet this climate that we're creating where people chant Nazi or far right, which is actually what the Nazis did, attack democratic elections or democratic people. And we really now need to thrash this out. I think what Elon Musk has done in the States is fantastic with President Trump. I came back from DC, I interviewed people there. The sense of possibility of getting rid of the previous ways of doing things, of a can-do attitude that puts the public first, that has clear values and virtues. That's the kind of thing we need to have in Britain now, and I think the public really, really want it. And those that stand in the way of it are going to be seen to being responsible for the problem.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, ever since the Blair regime, really, we've had sort of bigger government, ever bigger government, growing exponentially, I should say. You know, the civil service now massively bigger than it used to be, more government advisors than we've ever seen, and we're supposed to just suck it all up. We're supposed to go, oh yeah, we need all this. We need all these people to tell us what to do. And the more that I see of Starmer's government, the more autocratic and kind of, you know, dictatorial they seem to be.
We've got this terrible situation, and if you take each of the different areas, if you take what's going on in the public sector generally, but in the National Health Service and elsewhere, where you've got a sclerotic bureaucracy full of ideology, inefficiencies, and yet the frontline delivery of the service and the actual experience of those people on the staff is enormously problematic. Plus, you've got questions of numbers, and we have to address these questions and how we allocate resources and who's here, how we assess and evaluate that. We originally, when everyone harks back to the post-war period, the 1945 subsequently, we had a safety net. Right now, working everyday people do not want constant subsidies. People are proud in Britain. They want to get on. They want to work hard and earn money. But we've created a situation where there's possibilities for people just to be in that constant sort of position where they're like reliant on the state, where we've got too many people on all sorts of benefits and we don't pay enough, as it happens, and companies aren't earning enough. We need to get rid of this situation. We need to get efficient. We need to have more than a scalpel. We need to kind of get rid of vast swathes of what we've got, a sclerotic public sector. We need to get accountability back at things, and we need to get wealth creation and investment in infrastructure, and we need to have the public engaged in that discussion, Mike.
Absolutely. Alan, listen, I couldn't agree more. We've got to run. Thank you very much indeed. We'll get you back on to talk some more about that and explore some more of those ideas. But coming up, Andrew Neil is going to be here right after the news, and also lots more to come.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 2 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. Welcome to the home of common sense, the one place where you can find out exactly what is going on. We bring you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We will not do what the BBC does. We will not pretend that we're giving you a documentary about Gaza without telling you that the bloke that's narrating it has got a father who happens to be in Hamas. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't spend £400,000 on a documentary either, not least because we don't actually have the money. Andrew Neil's coming up in this hour. We're going to be talking to him about what is going on. He's got a piece in the paper today saying a new age has begun, and if he has the vision, Keir Starmer can make his mark by leading the rearming of Europe. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have made their points, and people in Europe were absolutely clutching their pearls, absolutely staggered by the truth being given to them, that Europe has frankly been roller coasting around and not doing anything about their own defence and allowing it to be denuded. Meanwhile, Russia invaded Ukraine 3 years ago to the day yesterday. Emmanuel Macron was in the White House yesterday talking to Donald Trump about what Europe should do and how they want to stand up more for themselves, which is not something that they even thought about 2 weeks ago. It's all happening. There is a geopolitical earthquake going on, if you like. Will there be peace in Ukraine? I think there will. Will Vladimir Putin get what he wants? I don't think so. Will Vladimir Zelensky have to step down in order to make sure it all happens? I don't think so either. Meanwhile, we've still got tariffs to talk about. We've still got the Chagos Islands to talk about. We've still got David Lammy talking about, the secrets to foreign affairs. We've got so much going on. We've got the police and crime bill coming up as well. Let's get it on. Also, by the way, if you need to get a bumper sticker, you know what to do. Have a listen to Bob.
Hi, Mike. Ordered my bumper sticker. I'm going to make it into a flag, attach it to an aerial, and drape it, and ride around on my Vespa with it, advertising the home of common sense. Great show as always, buddy.
I mean, you can certainly do that. I'm not sure whether the sticky part of it might be a problem, but never mind. This is the home of common sense. There's a revolution going on. Join it, get yourself a bumper sticker, make it very clear to everybody else that you are on the side of right. 0344 499 1000, 5 minutes past 8. Let's get it on. Welcome to Common Sense. Welcome to the home of it, indeed. This is Talk. We are here all the way through until 10 o'clock. 4 glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 a.m. To 10 a.m. Let's talk to Andrew Neil, who is right here, of course, with us, former editor of the Sunday Times, Times radio presenter as well, behemoth of the media world, I would have to say. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. Good to be with you.
Good to talk to you. I think your piece today kind of pretty much sets out the stall for Keir Starmer, doesn't it? He's off to Washington. He's going to go there. He's going to appear on Thursday to talk to Donald Trump. He doesn't sound as though he's terribly sort of confident about what he's going to say. We're not indeed sure what he is going to say, but I thought Emmanuel Macron yesterday was quite interesting when he said that Europe is going to step up. He's actually taken the advice of J.D. Vance, and he says that we need to do more.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Europe does need to do more, though what actually came out in terms of substance from Mr. Macron's meeting with Mr. Trump is not clear. If Keir Starmer is going to tell Donald Trump that we're going to increase defence spending from 2.3% of GDP to 2.5% of GDP, which is a mere extra $5 billion for defence, a rounding error in the national accounts, then he'd probably be better not going to the White House at all. And there is an opportunity here for Mr. Starmer, but will he step up? I'm not so sure. You see, Mike, we've gone beyond the argument that Europe needs to do more for its defence, which the Americans have been making for years and years. Trump just makes it a little bit more robustly than previous presidents. What we're now looking at as a result of Donald Trump's essentially retreat from Europe, we're looking now at the need to rebuild a Europe without the United States as the dominant security presence, and NATO without the United States as the dominant military power. That means that Britain, France, Germany, Poland, which was already doing a lot, and Italy all need to step up to the crease in a major way, not by decimal points, but by substantial increases in our national security. That is the challenge the continent now faces.
And as Vladimir Putin watches all of this from his eyrie in the Kremlin, what do you think he's making of it? Is he sort of rubbing his hands with glee, thinking that, well, if the Americans are going to take a step back, I'm now pretty much getting carte blanche to do what I want?
Yes, he's winning every time at the moment because he's got a friend in the White House for reasons that baffle me. I mean, as I was writing my column yesterday about this watershed in geopolitics, this retreat of Trump's America from Europe, pivot to the Pacific, the need for Europe to totally recalibrate its defense posture and stand up for itself now, which will mean huge political changes. The news came through that in a UN motion condemning Russian aggression in Ukraine and for the unprovoked invasion, America voted against it, siding with Russia, North Korea, and Belarus, the world's worst dictatorships, and against its democratic allies, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, and so on. I mean, if that's not a change in the geopolitics that we've known in our lifetime, this 80-year Pax Americana, which has helped to keep us all safe, then I don't know what is. It's hard to exaggerate how big a watershed this is and the consequences for Europe, which at the moment is bereft of leadership to step up to the crease and do what needs to be done.
And that does seem to be the big worry, doesn't it? Because, I mean, I read a piece in the Telegraph last week that that said, basically, I think it was by Alistair Heath, you know, that this is the worst time possible to have a Prime Minister like Keir Starmer, who doesn't really appear to have any great conviction about anything, who seems to sort of blow with the wind. You know, he can't even actually appear in front of a camera without reading from a piece of A4 newspaper, paper. You know, he needs notes for everything he does. He's not the kind of guy that's going to go to the White House and read Donald Trump the Riot Act, but it almost seems as though somebody needs to do that.
Well, Keir Starmer's grasp of geopolitics is pretty flimsy. He's not his background. The only thing he knows about international politics is international law. And of course, international law means that we're going to pay Mauritius billions of pounds to take the Chagos Islands off, a key defense military asset. I mean, it's just nonsense. So he has very little grasp of geopolitics. He's no history in it. And he's not anybody's idea of an inspirational leader. That said, on Ukraine and on other things, he's saying the right thing. He's not saying nearly enough about defense. But I don't think you can accuse him of selling us down the river. You look across the channel, and then you see President Macron, who often says a lot of the right things, but he's a busted flash, and he blows hot and cold. And the truth is, not often reported, France has done very little compared to Britain or Germany or America to help Ukraine. It really hasn't done a lot at all, and yet it is the second biggest military power in Europe after the United Kingdom. And then Germany, now which had this rudderless coalition government under the Social Democrats, is now going to have a new government led by the centre-right Christian Democrats. But lo and behold, the Social Democrats will be part of it. So it's likely to be a weak government buffeted around. I mean, the only leader at the moment in Europe, other than Poland, let's not ever forget Poland. Poland now spending almost 5% of its GDP on defense because it knows what happens to you when you don't have defense. It's learned the hard way at the hands of the Nazis and the Soviets what happens. Poland doing a lot, but the only other leader really is Meloni. And with in Italy, and with the best will in the world, Italy, although important, is not going to determine the geopolitics of Europe.
No, you said rudderless there, and it was the word I was literally, it was on the tip of my tongue. I was going to ask you. I don't see that Europe has been any more rudderless than this in my lifetime. The European Union appears to have denuded itself into nothing. You know, they spent so much time, you know, sort of counting matchboxes and doing ludicrous things about trade that they've got no real political oomph whatsoever left. And well, it feels like Europe's completely irrelevant now in the world.
It's not irrelevant, but it's not exactly as influential as it should be either. I mean, Europe had power going forward when it was dominated by the Franco-German motor. When France and Germany together operated together, they dominated Europe and they set the direction of the European Union, including things like the euro and so on. Well, Paris is weaker now. Berlin is a weak coalition governments. Paris and Berlin have not been getting on well together. Macron didn't get on with Scholz, the outgoing chancellor. We don't know how he'll get on with Merz. And, you know, there isn't much time to waste. There could well be a loser's peace deal done in Ukraine over our heads by Mr. Trump, who just seems to want to be out there. He's already given Mr. Putin most of what he wants. I don't know what the art of the deal is in Donald Trump's mind. In my, having done some deals in my own time, is you never give the stall away before the negotiations even begin. Looks like he has. So we need to start being serious and to realize that this is day one of a brave new world. And we need to do a lot more for our security, which is under more danger than it's been at any time since the Cold War. And people say to me, yeah, but we don't have the money. We don't have, our fiscal resources are stretched. We've got huge national debt. We run big budget deficits. I understand all that. But we spend as a government or as a country, the government spends over £1 trillion a year, £1 trillion. Don't tell me there's not the money there. If we stop wasting billions on this net zero nonsense, we could find billions to build up our defenses, improve our army, our navy, and our air force, and our intelligence services. If we, at a time of national danger, is what I believe we're in, you need to look hard at international aid, at foreign aid. In my view, I would confine that to helping those who are truly poor across the world. Those living in subsistence wages still help the truly poor, but all the other stuff, paying for the spice girls in Ethiopia and all that nonsense, money to China, money to India, no. Spend in the homeland, spend on the defense of the homeland. That's another several billion a year. Welfare reform, stop paying people to stay at home and do nothing. That would release billions as well, and just end this nonsense of the Chagos Islands, which could cost us 18 billion, paid up front, a lot of it. That's good. The money is there, Mike, if we have the willpower, the guts, and the political nous to do it. We can rebuild our defenses if we want to and take the hard decisions to do so.
Indeed. And if you could look ahead in 6 months' time, where will we be? Because, I mean, you've spent your career looking ahead to what we can expect to be up against, if you like, in the coming months. I mean, imagine we're in sort of, I don't know, November of this year. What's going to be going on then?
You know, there is a possibility that not much might have changed, because I'm seeing things coming out of Moscow at the moment in which they're saying, they're scratching their heads and saying, well, what is Trump's peace deal? You know, what does he expect us to agree to? How is this going to be resolved? So you may not get this breakthrough in the next couple of months that Donald Trump says we're going to get. So I wouldn't rule out. And also the Ukrainians will be thinking the Russian economy is on its knees. Another year and it may not be able to function properly. Whereas the Russians will be thinking we are grinding Ukraine down bit by bit. So the incentives for peace on either side may not be that great. My biggest worry would be that Donald Trump agrees a peace deal over the heads of Ukraine and of Europe. It's a peace deal that gives Mr. Putin most of what he wants, and it results in Europe deploying peacekeepers to the ceasefire line to patrol a peace deal over which we played no part. I mean, sending British lives into danger on that, you know, I'm not averse to deploying British power abroad at all. But to put British, French, German troops into harm's way for a peace deal we were not part of, that seems to me very dangerous, and in which Russia and America have maybe carved up Ukraine's mineral resources between them. What do we get out of that? What does Ukraine get out of that? I think that's the danger. This is the danger of this brave new world we're in which Russia, America, and China operate above our heads, which is why we start getting serious too and become a major player This has nothing to do with the European Union. It's nothing to do with Brexit. It's about the major nation states of Europe, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, getting together to create a powerful, high-spending, non-American NATO to secure all our freedoms in the 21st century.
It's going to be a tough ask, but I think you're absolutely right.
It is a tough ask, Mike.
I don't
underestimate, and my fear is we may not step up to the crease enough to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's quite frightening in some ways. Andrew, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Neil, with his piece there in the Daily Mail today. A new age has begun. As he said, Europe needs to step up. Europe says it's going to step up. That's what Emmanuel Macron said yesterday. But Europe has never really been more irrelevant, has it? And have we got the right Prime Minister to do this kind of a problem, sort this kind of a problem out? I don't think so. I really don't. Let's get a voice note from Carl.
Hi, Mike. Great show. It's Carl from Bury. I can't believe what I read last night. Keir Starmer's Facebook page. We will not stop in our effort to end this war. What's he talking about? For 3 years, I've never heard Keir Starmer once talk about peace in the Ukraine or talking about negotiations. As soon as Donald Trump rolls up and tells everybody exactly what's going to happen, he's trying to make a political benefit from it and save his backside. The guy is unbelievable. Cheers, Mike.
He really is unbelievable. Absolutely, incredibly unbelievable. Join the revolution. Meanwhile, here's one from Anna in Surrey. She says, Mike, I may enlarge my bumper sticker into a flattering material and drape it around my hips and walk topless to number 10. It depends on how much Sir Keith annoys me this week. Yeah, well, you might want to wait till the weather gets a bit better as well. Also, how about this from Dean in Birmingham? Mike, how do I order a bumper sticker? Very simple. Just send your name and address to feedback@talk.tv and we'll be able to help you out. The Home of Common Sense will continue, of course, throughout the course of this morning. It's coming up to 20 minutes past 8. Coming up next, make it fair. That is a message to everybody in the commercial sector, in the media sector. Basically, the government is looking to change the law to favour big tech, right? What they want to do is to make it possible for big tech to nick whatever they want. Whether it's a film, whether it's an actor, whether it's an AI version of a newspaper, whether it's an AI version of a stage play, whether it's an AI version of this show, right? Do you think they could actually do that? Well, if you don't look carefully, they will do it. And suddenly, creative industries in this country will not be treated fairly. That's why Make It Fair is a massive, massive campaign. It's backed by The Sun, it's backed by The Times, it's backed by News UK, it's backed by Talk, it's backed by every single media operation in this country. It's also backed by every single actor, every single rock band, every single musician, and every single director of anything creative in this country. We need to make it work. Coming up next, we'll talk to David Dinsmore, who is, of course, Chief Operating Officer here at News UK.
Putin isn't interested in territory. He's interested in sovereignty. He believes that he must recreate the boundaries of the old Soviet Union. He hated the idea of Ukraine becoming a country after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the Cold War. And he has been determined ever since to absorb it back into Russia, and also because of the huge amount of minerals, and also the fact that they grow huge amounts of wheat, which is exportable to the rest of the world. He wants all that back, and he won't stop.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 23 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. 4 glorious hours of this show every single weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's the only place to be for the common sense attitude to life, right? And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by David Dinsmore, Chief Operating Officer, News UK. David, welcome to the show. Every single newspaper this morning, and it has to be said, it doesn't happen very often, ever perhaps, have got a front page, which I'm going to just show up here. Make it fair. I think we can put it up on the screen. The Sun have done it, of course. The Times have done it as well. Government looking to change the law to favour big tech platforms so they can use British creative content to power the AI models. This is a story about AI, which we're only really beginning to learn about, aren't we? And what it can do, which is great. But what it can do, which is also maybe not so great, in terms of putting people out of work, taking ideas and just running away with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing, as you say, AI is really important. Generative AI, which is really what we're talking about here, where the computers can basically speak and write themselves. This is the future, and we don't want to stand in the way of that. It is going to be, it's already part of many people's lives. In 3 or 4 years' time, it will be part of everybody's lives. What we're saying, though, is it is really important that the material that is used to make this in the first place is fairly rewarded. So you've got the AI companies are, they're using vast amount of computer chips, making NVIDIA the biggest company in the world because they buy those computer chips. They have massive data centers, which again they pay to build. They have fleet of software engineers, the biggest brains in the world. I assume they're taking a salary. Energy, because this takes so much energy to make as well. They're paying their electricity bill, but the only bill they don't seem to want to pay is for the creative industries, which is the raw material in the first place that goes to make these models. And that's where we're saying.
We're talking about movies, we're talking about stage plays, we're talking about albums, music, words, books, media of all kinds, newspapers as well, and even what we do here, broadcasting, I guess.
Completely. And if I can just blow the trumpet for journalism, we talk about the training of the models, which is basically the building of the model in the first place to allow it to operate. And then the next bit is what they call RAG, which is the surfacing of material in the moment. And that's where journalism is so important, because if you don't have up-to-the-minute verified information, these models simply don't work.
And that is the problem, isn't it? Because the sense that I've got at the moment, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a sort of, it's almost like one of those, what they call fulfillment centres, where they get your groceries, and there's a sort of a robot that walks down or moves down the aisle, picking things up. There's the lettuce, there's the cucumber, there's the, the beef and whatever. And it seems as though they're just kind of willy-nilly picking what they want, and nobody's stopping them, and they're not paying at the end of it.
That's exactly it. And in fact, and they're not just picking what they want, they're taking everything. So they're
just cleaning it all out.
It's supermarket sweep for that analogy, and they'll just take everything in and then work out what they need at the end of it. And this is the danger. So that we're in the middle of a government consultation on this. It finishes today, hence the campaign. And government are suggesting that actually we water down existing copyright rules and give these companies an exemption on them, a free pass effectively to go and clear out the supermarket. And we're saying that just will not work. And the creative industries are worth 126 billion to the UK, but they're also our voice to the rest of the world. How many films, books, journalism? It's what defines Britain in the minds of everyone
very much
else.
Punches above its weight, doesn't it, in terms of those creative industries. When you think of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, James Bond, I mean, I know they've just bought it on Amazon over there, but the newspapers that we do, the books that are created, massive numbers of talent that we have in this country that everybody kind of plunders. But what can what can people do listening to this if they're, wondering what this is all about? Is it just about big companies trying to protect themselves? It's not really that, is it?
No. I think this is a fundamental issue. As I say, I think this will be the future, and we shouldn't step in the way of it. But if we should be saying to government, make sure that you do not trade our homegrown industry for an overseas industry that is coming in here. And you'll see there's a QR code in the front of all the papers today that you click through, and there is a letter writing campaign that you can join, and you can send a letter to your MP. But I think it's really easy to understand this. You wouldn't build a house without buying the bricks. And that's really what this comes down to. And we are in danger of giving the house away.
And I mean, in terms of what AI can do now, I mean, for example, I look at an awful lot of social media. You can see AI generated pictures which you can tell are not really real, because you and I have been in this business a long time, and you can see that's a doctored picture. But presumably in years to come, you won't be able to tell the difference. They'll be getting better and better at it, won't they?
And they have, and voice is a good example of that. So if we did Mike Graham bot 12 months ago, we would have been able to tell the difference. Now it is becoming increasingly difficult to tell the difference. But Mike Graham bot will not have your original thought.
No. Well,
and
that's what I keep saying.
Difference.
That's the thing that I keep saying will at least hopefully protect us. I think we're talking to Paul Gambaccini later on in the show, because he's been a victim of having his voice used for something which he didn't give permission for. But what I always say is that, in terms of fresh ideas and in terms of innovation, I don't even know what I'm going to say. So how could they predict it? I just don't know how they would,
Yeah. And that's it, and that's for all these inputs and these models. You may say, oh well, it's the horse is bolted and these models are trained, but actually they need the fresh material, they need the fresh information, like we all do, to continue to grow. And if they just keep feeding on their own AI material, they eventually break down. It's a bit like, you can have one burger and get away with it, but if you have a burger every meal...
it's not so good. And you also made the point earlier about verification and kind of, being honest and actually having standards, which is also an issue, isn't it? Because, of course, if AI is going to pick from various sources for its information, and we've seen this with Grok in the past, the Elon Musk kind of, chatbot, you can put something into it and ask it a question, but it will only give you an answer based on what it knows, as opposed to what might be the truth.
And you only get one answer. So that's the other thing. So if you do traditional search, you will get a list of answers. But typically, if you put an answer into a generative AI bot, you're only getting one response. So, and none of that traffic that is generated from that, or very little of that traffic, will end up coming back to newspapers at all, and people will just make do with what is there. So,
and is it something that everybody could have foreseen? I mean, 5 years ago, would you even have been talking about this?
No,
because it just kind of happened.
It just happened.
I
mean, there were obviously those in the know were working hard at this, and then when OpenAI sort of released ChatGPT 3, I think it was. In late 2022, that was really the first that we were aware of this at scale.
Because I talk to my kids about stuff like this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we really like AI because we can, it can write essays for us, when we're at university." I'm like, "Yeah, well that's fine, but what about the other side of it and the dangers of it?" And they're not really aware. It's almost as like we have to kind of educate them about that.
So, which is why this is such an important moment for the country. And Britain shouldn't underestimate its power in this as well. So 90% of all AI material, or the material used to train AI comes from America and Europe. And 90% of that is English language. So we are probably the second most important English language market in the world. So we should be using that leverage and not just rolling over and having our tummies tickled.
Interesting, because Andrew Neil just told us and agreed with me that Europe feels a little bit irrelevant right now in terms of international affairs. Maybe this is something that could lead us into a much more strong position in dealing with people like the USA in the White House.
Absolutely, because and again we're being told, look, it's if we don't water this down, then the companies won't invest here. I think that is just not true.
No, quite.
And we've got to force that.
We will. David, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. David
Thanks for having me.
Chief Operating Officer at News UK. It's a fascinating campaign. It's a good campaign. Make it fair. Have a look at it. Check out the QR code. Go through it and listen and understand what it is that you're watching and what you're hearing and what you're doing. I mean, imagine listening to me. If I was a robot, I'd be like Keir Starmer. And look where that's got him. It's 8:32. We'll be back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:34. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here for that. One from Mark. He says this: Mike, regarding the interpreters, when my son was 13, he was bullied by a lad at school. We were asked in because his parent wanted to apologise. In the meeting, an interpreter came in because his mother didn't speak English. Her son had been born in the UK and was 14, and she hadn't even learnt the language in those years. Beggars belief. Absolutely. And Rob says, wouldn't it be better getting humans right before worrying about AI? AI is our imposed future. What person do you know was asking for it? This is only for profit and we should step in the way of it. It's not our future unless you want to live in dreamland. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But the trouble is that if you let things happen around you, as Europe has done over the course of time, as we listen to Andrew Neil talking about defence, suddenly you find yourself out of position. And when you try to climb back up over the wall, you can't do it because they made it very slippery and you haven't got the right shoes and you haven't got the right, I don't know, tools to do the job. That's the problem. Steve says this: NHS waiting lists could be reduced overnight if we insisted everyone here speaks English. Consultations with doctors take 3 times longer for non-English speakers. Well, indeed, absolutely right. Now, let us talk to Maxine Thompson-Curl, who's the director of One Punch UK, because the news came in yesterday, much to quite a lot of people's chagrin, that basically Mike Amesbury, the Labour MP, who was caught on camera sucker punching a constituent, basically one night on a night out in Liverpool, has been jailed after admitting to doing it. He was drunk, he wasn't in control of his faculties, and he was ordered to serve 10 weeks in prison. Basically after the attack from last October. A very good morning to you, Maxine. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Just before I ask for your considered view on this, have a listen to Deanna Davidson. She wasn't able to join us this morning, but she sent us this message. She, of course, very, very heavily involved in the One Punch campaign. Have a look at this.
Many of your viewers and listeners will know that my own dad was killed by a single punch back in 2007 when he was just 35. The punch hit him in exactly the wrong place and ruptured an artery in his neck, and he was dead before he hit the ground. And so I have spent years campaigning to raise awareness of the genuine dangers that throwing a single punch can cause, working with the brilliant charity One Punch UK, who support dozens of families right across the country, and I've been fortunate enough to meet many of them. People who have lost loved ones through these mindless, senseless acts of violence. So when I saw the CCTV footage of Mike Amesbury, an elected MP, punching his constituent, not just once, but multiple times and knocking him to the ground, my heart just sank. If Mike Amesbury's blow had landed literally half an inch one way or the other, that could have been the case here. And Mike Amesbury, as an elected representative, absolutely should know better. 10 weeks to me does sound pretty lenient, I was campaigning for longer sentences for people who cause death through these single punches, so it kind of only follows that I would want severe sentences for people who assault as well. The sentencing doesn't give the family a sense of justice. It can't bring your loved one back. It can't take away from the trauma and grief that you've felt. But what it can do is, one, act as a punishment for the person who's perpetrated, but two, the main goal, to act as a deterrent to try and stop other people from thinking they can get away with committing such mindless acts. I don't see how he can continue to serve as an elected member of Parliament. On the national sense, he would be sitting in a parliament having been convicted of assault and having received a custodial sentence, voting on matters of criminal justice, voting on potential laws around assault, voting on potential laws about victim support, voting on potential sentencing rules, and I think that is completely and utterly inappropriate. But then there's the constituency angle too. There will inevitably be constituents who perhaps wouldn't feel safe in his presence now. There'll be constituents who feel he's simply a terrible role model, constituents who don't trust him to act in their best interests. And ultimately, constituents who now just see him as a vehicle for ridicule because of what he did.
There we are, Deanna Davison there talking to us about her father, who was killed by One Punch. Maxine Thompson Curl and Anthony Curl founded One Punch UK because of something that happened to their son Christian, who was also punched with one punch and who died as a result. Maxine, good to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us. And this is a terrible legacy, isn't it, that's happened both to yourself and to Deanna, and the danger of extreme violence that seems to happen on a kind of daily and nightly basis in this country.
Yes, good morning and thank you for inviting me on. Really, can I just say the follow-up to Deanna, that was absolutely amazing. Everything she said, I back 100%.
Yeah.
It is, this is my legacy. My Christian was a 19-year-old boy who had just been out to pick a friend up from a nightclub. He went to the toilet and an individual 24-year-old hit him a one punch. And my life hasn't been the same. That was back in 2010.
I know, it must be absolutely awful. It must be something you think about all the time. And I mean, you know, I don't wish to pick on Mike Amesbury. I'm not picking on him because he's a Labour MP or because he happens to be in the public eye. But I mean, the video footage of what he did seems to me to be worthy of slightly more than a 10-week sentence in prison, given that he pleaded guilty to assaulting a constituent in a way which could have been as deadly as what happened to your son.
Yes, and the thing is as well that it's down as a one punch, but a one punch is always grievous bodily harm. In the little say without intent, because it was only once. But Mike Amesbury went about 4 or 5 times, didn't he, to that poor man who was lying on the floor. So there was definite intent. So it's grievous bodily harm with intent. Had that person died, that would have been a murder charge.
Yeah.
You know, it's just absolutely disgraceful. And, you know, look at the state of him.
Yeah.
He's in the public eye all the time, that man. That's what he wanted. He stood up to be voted, to be an example to all of us, and now he just thinks that's okay. And the insult, you know, we're talking about a way of for families who've lost loved ones. It's about getting justice, isn't it?
Yes.
So the insult on that family, luckily that man didn't die, but 10 weeks, it's just an absolute insult, and still getting paid, apparently.
Yes.
I've read it in the paper this morning.
Well, I mean, also, apparently showing no sign of remorse. He's apparently appealing the sentence, which seems ridiculous. And he's showing no signs of stepping down from his job as an MP, which is extraordinary.
You should have no choice. You should just be taken away, and that should be taken away. Like, you know, how, like exactly what Dehenna's just said. How can he stand for us as a public? Because he's not trustworthy, is he?
No, I mean, you wouldn't. No, I mean, if he's willing to do that, you'd have to think to yourself. I mean, I've been a journalist for many years. That's not the first time that's happened. That's not the first time he's done that. He looks like somebody who does that on a regular basis.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. But it's about responsibility, and we go around the schools and all over the place and talk to children and adults about, you know, being. Your actions and your consequences. So think about what you're doing, and we'll say you're responsible. You're responsible for those hands on the end of your arm. You know, we weren't given those hands to kill, were we? you know, and you've got to be, it's just disgusting. And for him not to be, you know, you should be just ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely ashamed.
Yeah.
And so should the court for giving him 10 weeks. £200 fine.
I know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? When they're locking people up for all sorts of things which are much less damaging. I mean, would your campaign charity like to see sort of what you might call, I don't know, automatic sentencing for something like this?
Yes, absolutely. And as Dehenna said, we've been trying for the past 6 or 7 years to look at sentencing levels with the one-punch assault. There's not even like research. It's not even categorised as a separate assault. It's just put in with the assaults. So it does need something. Australia campaigned long and hard. And if you're over there, you'll get 15 years for that one punch, 25 years if you kill somebody.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working towards.
Yes. And have you had any sort of encouraging conversations with ministers or anything like that?
Yes, we have. My husband Anthony's been down at the House of Parliament on a good few occasions. And we have got a lot of support. It's just getting the changes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Well, listen, Maxine, I wish you luck. Thank you very much indeed. Anything we can do to help, we'd be very happy to. Maxine Thompson-Curl and Anthony Curl, husband, trying, you know, vehemently and as hard as they can to try and get the law changed. And it is ludicrous, is it not, that Mike Amesbury, Labour MP, a man who's supposed to be in a position of some responsibility and basically some kind of show of advantage to the way that other people should behave, gets caught punching a guy repeatedly as he's on the ground, gets sentenced to 10 weeks in prison, still gets paid as an MP, showing no signs of remorse, showing no interest whatsoever in stepping down from his job, which pays him £91,000 a year, thank you very much, plus expenses. I think it's absolutely shameful, isn't it? David says this from Grimsby. How will two-tier do with the question time stood next to Trump? With or without paper, he'll collapse. That voice grating in everyone's ears. Oh, the humanities. Great show as always. I was watching the Reform conference last night, says Marco from Swindon, and didn't Anne Widdecombe absolutely smash it on stage? Gave me goosebumps, reminded me of the old Iron Lady herself. I was literally watching the live membership tracker fly up during her speech. Absolutely brilliant. Come on, Reform, and you've got the best breakfast show ever. Well, thank you, Marco. That's very kind of you. And Warwick from Devon says, morning, Mike. Great show. Nigel Farage has no need for A4 paper or even an auto cue. He does it straight from his British heart. Well, that's the point. You know, if you know what you're saying, if you believe in what you're doing, there is absolutely no reason to have a piece of paper in front of you like Keir Starmer seems to have every single time he speaks. It's absolutely unbelievable. We'll come back to that, though, in a moment. Coming up next, we're going to speak to Victoria Atkins MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Don't forget, today's the day you can order your bumper sticker, and it's a bumper day to do it. Try and send it to feedback@talk.tv. That would be send your name, send your address to feedback@talk.tv, and we will send you out forthwith one of these beautiful bumper stickers, the Home of Common Sense, Morning Glory, a picture of me on it as well. It might keep people slightly further back from the car than you would want, because they wouldn't want to come too close to you seeing that, knowing that you are obviously somebody with a great deal of common sense on board. Let's get a voice note from Peter.
Morning, Mike. Pete from Lincolnshire. Great show as usual. Regarding Mike Amesbury, the 10 weeks is laughable. We've got people in prison for writing hurty tweets or even being present at a protest. So what baffles me even more is how comes the CPS are not going to lodge an appeal to get an even stiffer sentence? It's almost as though they look out for each other. Anyway, great show. Cheers.
It is almost as though they look out for each other, isn't it? You would be absolutely right to say that. Marco from Swindon says, it's only 10 weeks for Iron Mike Amesbury. I'm pretty sure people are serving longer for Facebook posts, aren't they? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will get me twice as long in jail. Welcome to Starmer's clown world. And Sharon says, Mike, can you not do a sticker to get rid of the Labour government? Well, if we could, we would. Absolutely right. We'll see what we can do. One here from... we've got that one. No, we've done that one already. We'll come back with more from the Revolution of Common Sense with Victoria Atkins MP.
last week when I was away, apparently Nigel Farage gave up ownership of Reform UK to make the party more demographic. Was that the two of you decided that?
So instead of being owned by 3 or 4 individuals, Nigel is the majority shareholder, it would become owned by the membership.
Right.
It was the constitution, the new one was signed off in the September conference we had, and it's gone through the legal process, and now it's actually happened, and it was all confirmed last week. The democratisation has happened.
Yep.
And so that's, in a sense, part of the maturing, professionalising of the party that Nigel as leader promised to do, and he's delivered on that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:49. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. One here from Melanie in Watford says, what an intelligent woman heading One Punch. She speaks so much sense and puts it so well. We need people like her in government. Love the show, Mike. Melanie, thank you very much indeed. And Ed says, if a constituent had attacked an MP in that way, you can guarantee it would have been more than 10 weeks in jail. Absolutely right. It is, of course, two-tier Keir's world that we live in, and there's no question that there is two-tier justice, no question that there is two-tier policing, no doubt that there is also two-tier sentencing as well. Now, coming up, we've got lots more to do. We're going to speak to Victoria Atkins very shortly. But let me play you something that amused me last night, and I thought we should put it out on the show today. A woman called Joy Reid. Now, you may not have heard of Joy Reid, but she was one of the foremost stalwarts of MSNBC, which is, of course, a left-wing organisation that was a publication-free zone when it came to Donald Trump. These were people who basically went on and on and on about how great Kamala Harris was, on and on and on about how terrible Donald Trump was. Joy Reid was one of the biggest race baiters in American media, right? She had a nightly show on MSNBC. Well, as a result of the failure of Kamala Harris to win any sort of votes whatsoever and to lose massively to Donald Trump in the election last November, Joy Reid's been fired, along with a bunch of other lefties from MSNBC, as they try and actually make sense of how to cover politics properly. And here's what she said on her final show.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I say this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And then it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues.
Yeah, she went hard on so many issues. Black Lives Matter. She went hard on so many issues. Donald Trump's an absolute and utter horror show. She went hard on so many issues like, Kamala was the greatest thing that ever happened to the United States of America. She went hard on all manner of other things, trans rights, all of that. Cobblers, absolute rubbish, which has all been now put in the dustbin, thankfully, by Donald J. Trump. Ridiculous. Absolutely utterly ridiculous. People have been laughing about it all night, basically, on the internet, because it is entirely hilarious. Morning, Mike, says Linda from Deal. Just sent my email for one of your great stickers. I will be placing mine on my mobility scooter, proudly. Well done. Have a great day. Brilliant. And Mark in Selby says, Mike, if there was a Keir Starmer bot out there, can we please have it as our Prime Minister? Nobody would notice, of course. Decisions would be better, and the voice would certainly be less grating. It certainly would. Now, just in case you're wondering how to get yourself a little bit of money over the course of the next few weeks and months, have a listen to this. It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
And as we said earlier, there's a big campaign today that News have got behind, including all other newspapers as well. Make it fair, basically trying to convince the government to change the law to make sure that big tech platforms cannot just lift and take willingly without any kind of payment or without any kind of worry any sort of creative content produced by British actors, British rock stars, British pop stars, British singers, British classical music aficionados, British directors, British newspapers, British radio stations, British TV stations, all of that. We'll keep you updated on that too. Now, a lot of people have been asking me about the Reform conference that happened down in Cornwall yesterday. We're going to try and get hold of Nigel Farage to get him to tell us exactly why they seem to face all of these ridiculous conversations outside of everything that they ever do. Here's a bunch of protesters, a right rag bag of absolute and utter wallies outside this Reform conference in Cornwall. Have a look.
Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome here!
Yeah, it's funny that refugees are welcome in Cornwall because nobody else is. If you go down there and try and buy a house, they're not very keen on it. The refugees, of course, don't have any money to buy a house. I don't know what they're going to do in Cornwall. There's no jobs in Cornwall. There's nothing to do in Cornwall unless you fancy surfing in the old sewage. There's not much to do in terms of work. There's not much to do in terms of leisure. There's not much to do in terms of anything, really. So why refugees would be welcome here in Cornwall is anybody's guess. Doesn't surprise me, though, that those complete and utter wallies are just standing there in the cold, demonstrating against the democratically elected bunch of MPs. 5 of them, mind you, of course. And let's have a voice note from Dale.
Hi, Mike. Dale from Cambridgeshire here. Talking about Mike Amesbury, I just understand how, if he can get away and still be paid and still technically be an MP after punching someone, you know, committing an illegal act and be put away or given a sentence for 10 weeks and not lose his job. You know, people do speed awareness courses as an example, and the person giving that course, the tutor, they always say, if I have at least a point on my license, I lose my job. I cannot function anymore in a professional manner to carry out my job as a speed awareness course instructor. So why is it any different for an MP if they punch someone and they still get to stay in their job? It's unbelievable.
Well, it seems extraordinary, doesn't it? I mean, under no other situation would you be able to keep hold of your job. The fact is that MPs live in this kind of rather cosseted world because they're not technically employed by anyone, and so it's really down to them as to whether or not they give up the job because nobody can actually fire them, which seems also ridiculous, doesn't it? So you can get a criminal conviction for assault, which is what's happened. You can go to prison for assault, and you can come back and do your job. I mean, he should do the decent thing and resign. But unfortunately, Mike Amesbury doesn't seem to be the sort of person who believes in doing the decent thing. I guess we should have known that, knowing how he treats his constituents, because if you don't agree with him, he simply punches you to the ground. And when you're on the ground, he continues punching you. Unbelievable stuff. Donald Trump, of course, a different kettle of fish as well. He's over in the United States of America. He's about to see Keir Starmer. He gave a press conference yesterday with Emmanuel Macron, but he was also talking to a bunch of workers who Elon Musk asked about what they were doing, because, of course, what they're trying to do is find out whether people who work for the state, the federal government, are actually doing the job they're supposed to be paid to do.
You're talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great, because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist.
Yeah, that's the problem. And a lot of people working from home, so they are cracking down. I wish we should do it here. Imagine running the line over people who are working at the Home Office and say to them, what did you actually do last week? And if they went, oh yeah, here's what I did. I managed to process one asylum seeker claim. And how long did that take? It took me a week. And what did you comply? And what did you decide? Oh, we decided to grant the asylum. Why did you only do one? Well, it takes a long time. I mean, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Now, coming up tonight, something different for you all if you are listening to this show on the radio. If you're watching it on YouTube, of course, you don't have to worry about it because Kevin O'Sullivan is on every single night from 7 to 10, a brilliant show, The Asylum, as it's called, Kevin's Political Asylum. You can still watch that on Talk's YouTube channel or on your smart TV. But because there's an extraordinary amount of football going on, tonight from 7 p.m, we're going to be bringing you Wolves taking on Fulham. On Wednesday night, title contenders Liverpool face Newcastle, both fixtures live and exclusive here on Talk. It's Premier League action, but it does not mean that you can't enjoy all of the stuff that you would normally enjoy by watching this television station and this radio station in the evening, right? Because there are so many different platforms. People talk about, radio being old-fashioned, people listening on transistors, and some people do. And if you're out and about in a car, obviously you can't watch it on TV. But so many people now watch this show. We've got so many viewers, and many of you are sending us your emails and getting in your requests for bumper stickers, right? So don't be alarmed. Kevin O'Sullivan's show will still be going out. It just won't be going out on the radio because instead there's a bit of football coming over from Talk Sport, because Talk Sport is, of course, our sister station. We help them out whenever we can, and they've asked us to help them out tonight, so that's what we're doing. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Gurdeep says this: morning, Mike. These Labour politicians haven't lived the lives that we have. If we ever behaved in that way or lied about our lives, we'd lose everything. Of course you would. This is Morning Glory. Back after this.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to nearly 3 minutes past 9. How did we get here, by the way? I don't know how fast this show goes, but we're in the final hour already. Julie Hartley-Brewer coming up just before 10 o'clock to let us know what's going on. A bit of breaking news from earlier in the show. The energy price cap will increase by a massive 6.4%. So basically, if you weren't expecting it, you're going to be paying even more for your energy prices in the coming weeks and months, because this is going to go up in April, from April the 1st, April Fool's Day, you might say. We're supposed to be going up 85 quid, that's what we were told, but it looks like it's actually going up £111. It's going from 1,738 quid to 1,849, which by my reckoning is £111. So whatever Ed Miliband tells you about, oh, it's all to do with fossil fuels, you know, because we have to get more green energy, we have to get more renewables under our belts, and that's the only way we're going to be able to survive the nuclear winter that's coming our way. Well, no, it's nothing to do with that. And what it is we need to get more of our own fossil fuels coming out of the ground and heating our homes, gas, electricity, fracking. That's what we need. And what we don't need is heat pumps that don't work. What we don't need is solar panels that don't shine. And what we don't need is Ed Miliband, quite frankly. He should be dispatched off to some, gulag somewhere in the far east of Russian Siberia, because that is where he belongs. The man is a complete and utter numpty, and net zero is going to destroy the entire economy. Everybody knows that. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Today's a big day, by the way. It's a bumper day, you might say, here at Morning Glory, because it's your chance to get yourself a bumper sticker that says you are a member of the Revolution for Common Sense, which we do here every single day. Send your name and address to feedback@talk.tv, and we will send you a free bumper sticker, the like of which you've never seen, and people will be able to recognise you as somebody who is incredibly intelligent and filled, of course, with the one thing that the government doesn't seem to have, and that is common sense. We are the world headquarters of it, and you should, of course, want to join in. So do join that revolution and do it today. Feedback@talk.tv. Meanwhile, Victoria Atkins is going to join us, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. We'll tell you all about a big campaign to save our creative industries in this country called Make It Fair. Also, Dan Hodges is going to be here as well. We'll find out what he thinks about Keir Starmer ahead of his visit to the White House, which is coming up, of course, on Thursday. Lots of talk today in the papers about Ukraine's situation vis-à-vis Russia, vis-à-vis the United States of America. Already Donald Trump's talking about having a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, bringing him to Washington to talk. He's also talking about visiting Russia as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Today, of course, is also the introduction of the Police and Crime Bill. So, according to Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, we're going to be clamping down on vicious thugs. We're going to be stopping people from shoplifting. We're going to be stopping people from stealing your phone. We're going to be stopping people from riding around on e-bikes willy-nilly without paying any attention to the law. And, of course, we're going to be stopping all manner of criminal activity by somehow changing the law to make the criminals behave better. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. But perhaps Victoria Atkins can help me. She's the Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Victoria, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Sorry, I was chuckling with your description of Ed Miliband. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to make fun of Ed Miliband. I mean, he presents himself in such a ridiculous way. What can I say?
It would be funny if it wasn't so serious.
That's true.
I'm very conscious the conversation that you are having. This is a blow to households across the country facing their third consecutive price rise for energy under this Labour government. And don't forget, this government they campaigned last year promising us all that they would decrease our energy bills by some £300.
Yeah.
Instead, what have we got? We've got an energy company that doesn't actually produce any energy. We have of prime agricultural land being plastered by solar panels and wind farms. And as you've rightly said, they have refused to look again at the oil fields in the North Sea, which we need because we need energy today, not in 10 years' time.
Yeah, I mean, only yesterday we were talking about BP, which used to be called British Petroleum. It's now called Beyond Petroleum. And the company has more or less been driven into the sea and is about to go under and is about to be bought by an American hedge fund because they went green and they went for this net zero nonsense. And now it looks like they're actually so vulnerable to a takeover because the company is so weak, its share price has fallen so much that they're in terrible trouble. And that's what will happen to our economy if we continue down this mad road, which I have to say, without wishing to be rude, Victoria, you guys introduced us to.
Well, look, I think there is absolutely a place for sensible, thought-through, renewable energy policy. So, for example, I would love to see great big warehouses. We know the ones we mean on the M1 and elsewhere, those distribution warehouses with their roofs filled with solar panels. That can make a real difference to our energy supply, because I think we all appreciate we need a diverse range of supply. But my gripe with this is that instead Ed Miliband has been overriding local residents' opinions and just plastering solar farms on prime agricultural land. We've seen it in my home county of Lincolnshire, and my worry is that this government, it has such a lack of understanding and, dare I say it, care about our countryside and our coastal areas, that they will ride roughshod over local opinion, putting their ideology before the views and the feelings of local people, who, by the way, have been looking after this wonderful countryside. If you think of our farming families for generation after generation, and instead we have these diktats from some city-dwelling ministers in London. That is quite wrong, and as a Lincolnshire MP, let alone the Shadow DEFRA Secretary, I will be holding City Steve and all of his cabinet colleagues to account on these policies. It's really important.
Well, it seems as though they don't care about the people of this country. I mean, they talk about working people all the time. Keir Starmer mentions that phrase so often it's starting to annoy me. But, you know, there's an NFU conference today. City Steve, as you call him, is going to turn up. Presumably he's going to actually address it and he's going to talk to some of the farmers. But the farmers say to me, whenever I talk to them, the government won't discuss it with them. They had a meeting last week with, I think, James Murray, who's sort of the junior man in the Department of Environment, and they don't seem to understand that they've made a massive error here. They've encapsulated too many farmers who run smaller farms and family farms in this kind of, you know, attack on inheritance, and they seemingly won't row back on it.
No, I started out feeling generous towards the government. I thought perhaps they just don't understand. But now I'm afraid they've been given evidence after evidence of the terrible impact this is having, not just on family farms, but also all family businesses, because the death tax they announced at the budget will apply to family farms. It will also apply to family businesses that run, you know, produce agricultural machinery and so on. It will include, for example, the local hairdressing salon on your high street that's owned by a family. It will include local manufacturing businesses. And this death tax is already having a huge impact on these businesses. Only yesterday, when I called the 3 largest farming organisations into the House of Commons to talk with me about the future of farming, they were telling me that farmers are making decisions not to invest. They are cutting jobs because they cannot afford the national insurance hike that Rachel Reeves has foisted upon all businesses. And they're stopping the future planning because, and this is a really awful aspect of this policy, and I genuinely don't know how Labour ministers look themselves in the eye in the morning. This is having a human cost, whereby people are having conversations around kitchen tables about that date of April 2026 when this dreadful tax will come into force, and whether their family can afford for them to live beyond that date. These are terribly sensitive and difficult conversations, and it is this Labour government that has forced families into having these conversations. It is disgraceful, and I very much hope that City Steve, when he stands up in front of the NFU conference today, that he has the courage to admit that they have made a mistake and that he will axe the family farm tax because they have the evidence to show that their calculations are completely wrong, and yet they are not only refusing to move, they're even refusing to listen. When I was speaking to the farmers yesterday, they were telling me we were all expecting the Chancellor to pop into the meeting last Tuesday in the Treasury. She hasn't met a single farmer since she announced this policy, but she's running scared from them. And so the answer, if this Chancellor is not prepared to meet farmers to talk this policy through, what hope do we have for the wider economy when we as UK PLC have to be on the international stage asking businesses, inviting businesses to come and invest here, grow the economy, develop jobs, really develop the industries of the future? If she can't speak to a group of farmers, how on earth is she going to manage that on the international stage?
No, I don't think she is. I mean, Jonathan Reynolds has disappeared off to India to avoid it. So, I mean, that's the way it goes. Listen, Victoria, got to run. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I appreciate it. Victoria Atkins, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. Let's talk to Dan Hodges, who is, of course, our man at the Mail on Sunday. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, according to Victoria Atkins, the Labour government are running scared of talking to farmers. I mean, Steve Reid's going to go and address them at the NFU conference today, but he's not going to tell them he's sorry. He's not going to tell them they're going to change their policy, is he? He's going to carry on unfettered.
No, he's not going to say that. And I think one of the reasons is actually, speaking to ministers and MPs, I don't think the government are running scared of the farmers at the moment. I think there are a lot of issues around that people are, the general public are very angry about. I mean, obviously, you've been touching on rising energy bills, which are obviously a very serious problem. We've had some really, over the last couple of days, we've had some bad economic figures. I think that's concerning people. Obviously, the cut, we're starting to get out of the winter now, but the cuts to winter fuel are obviously something that has really, really damaged the government. I've got to be honest, I don't think the farmers' protests and the farmers' campaign is really catching fire at the moment. I don't think it's something that I think there's a sort of a general sympathy, I suppose, amongst the voters, but I don't think it's something that the government feels they're under a huge amount of pressure on at the moment, if I'm completely honest.
They may not, but I mean, again, like everything else that we talk about, it's not just about one thing anymore, is it? It's about all sorts of things. It's about the fact that everywhere you look, there is a pressure point, and whether or not the farmers are at the top of that tree, they're certainly on it, and so everywhere you turn, I mean, I don't think there is one cabinet minister in one cabinet government department who could say that they've got everything under control and everything's going really, really well. I mean, if you, for example, and I started doing a bit of this on Monday, asked people what they did last week and what they achieved, you might not get very many good answers coming back from any government ministers.
Well, maybe. I hope you're not getting on the Elon.
Well, the funniest one was I had a Tory. I don't get Labour MPs. I don't come on, but I had a Tory MP on, and I said, "Can you tell me what you achieved last week?" Just as apropos to Elon Musk's question, and he went, "Oh, well, actually, I was off for a few days." I went, "It's not really the answer I was looking for, but it was half term."
No, you don't want to be asking that one to Kemi Badenoch, do you? I mean, I think that.
Well, not really. No. Well, I mean, I don't think any politician right now, apart from anybody in reform, would actually be able to say anything about what they'd achieved.
Well, no, I'd actually disagree. I think reform have an absolute shocker at the moment, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we saw last week, if you'd have asked reform MPs last week, what have you done? They'd have had to have said, well, we spent half the week going to ground because we've had the rug pulled out from under us by Donald Trump, and we're scrabbling around to justify. Well, yeah,
except for the fact that they've managed to recruit thousands more members, though. So I mean, they're actually growing as a party, which is what they're really doing at the moment. It's not their fault. It's not their fault they're the de facto opposition.
Yeah, they're certainly getting a lot of members, and if you remember, what was it that what happened to the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn? I mean, remember that? I remember, Jeremy Corbyn and his acolytes running around pointing to their mass membership lists, and it was absolutely right. Labour's membership under Jeremy Corbyn
but half the people on that list had paid £5 from Conservative Party Central Office to join it, so they could make Jeremy Corbyn the leader. So I mean, that's why they had so many people in it.
Yeah, well, I reckon a lot of those people have now jumped over from the Tories to reform as well, to be perfectly honest. No, I mean, I think, Look, I mean, I think the big issue, obviously, at the moment, and maybe we'll come on to that, is obviously the politics has been dominated over the last week by Trump and Ukraine, and reform have been found badly wanting on that.
But I think everybody has. I mean, I know you've been very forceful in your view that Keir Starmer's played a blinder. I'm not sure I agree, because I'm talking to Andrew Neil earlier, and he agreed with me that Europe right now seems completely irrelevant to what is going on in the world. We've got Emmanuel Macron desperately trying to show that he's going to be a much better boy now that Donald Trump's told Europe to get their act together and start spending more money on defence. He's like, we're going to step up to the plate, or whatever he says in his accent. He's going to do more for Europe, and Europe is now sort of bending to the will of Donald Trump. Keir Starmer is not in any way, shape or form going to go to the White House with a strong message to tell Trump to do what he wants, is he?
Well, I think he is, and I think, I completely disagree. I mean, I think, you're saying Europe's irrelevant. I mean, we saw, obviously, Trump. Well, I mean, Trump obviously felt it was necessary to sit down with Macron yesterday. As you said, he's going to sit down with Starmer late this week. That doesn't indicate that he, at the moment, sees Europe as completely irrelevant.
Well, yeah, but he's sitting down with them because they've asked for meetings in the same way that that you and I would sit down with Emmanuel Macron if he rang you up and said, "Can I come and talk to you?" You'd go, "Yeah, all right then."
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump is the sort of person who just lets anybody bowl up into the Oval Office. It doesn't strike me as...
Well, he had the Polish Prime Minister there a couple of days before.
Well, exactly, and that's further evidence that actually he does think Europe is relevant. I mean, the other thing is obviously that, I mean, you said about Macron bending the knee. I mean, what was fascinating in the meeting yesterday is Macron didn't bend the knee, and Macron very openly, and I think Trump seemed quite shocked because Trump's not used to this sort of treatment. Macron, sitting in the Oval Office right next to him, literally put his hand on him and said, "No, you're wrong."
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see that now. And I think, Keir Starmer will, I think, possibly try and be a little bit more diplomatic. But the reality is Keir Starmer has also been very clear and is very clearly delivering a very different message to Trump. He's saying, quite clearly Russia are the aggressors.
Yeah, but Trump's getting on with it without needing to talk to these characters. This is my point. I mean, Macron can do whatever he likes and put his hand on his arm and say, "No, you're wrong." Trump's not going to pay any attention to him. Trump's already said he's invited Zelensky to come and see him in Washington, which he will do. He's already said he'll probably go in to see Putin if he wants to go over to Russia. The fact that Macron says anything is completely and utterly irrelevant. There is nothing that Europe can do to stop Donald Trump from doing anything.
Well, look, Donald Trump can obviously pursue his foreign policy and is pursuing it, as we saw yesterday. The US lined up with North Korea alongside Russia to veto a UN resolution saying Russia was to try and veto a UN resolution or vote against the resolution saying Russia was to blame for the invasion. But America lost that vote.
Right.
So, yeah, Trump is obviously pursuing a very different independent foreign policy. But as we can see with Macron and with Starmer and the rest of Europe is basically starting to say, OK, if you're going to go your own way, fine, we're going to go a different way. And as I say, I think that's good. And I think that's good. I think we do need to stand on our own 2 feet now. And I think most importantly, people do need to start turning around to Donald Trump and saying to his face, "Look, you're wrong." And as I said, as we saw yesterday, it's not something that he's used to. It's not something he likes. It's not something his supporters like. And every time anybody...
He looked pretty happy yesterday with Macron, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he looked that happy when Macron was telling him he was wrong. I think he was a little bit put out by it. But that's the new reality. Trump's been clear. Trump's acolytes have been very clear. The days where the United States was one of our major allies in standing up to people like Putin are over. So we're going to have to learn to stand up to people like Putin on our own, and maybe that's.
But again, that's not quite right, because he is standing up to Putin. He is actually solving the problem, and that's why Europe is less relevant, because he's bringing.
Please. standing up to Putin. He literally voted with Vladimir.
Dan, you're falling into the trap. No, Dan, you're falling into the trap. You think that he's giving Putin everything he wants. You don't know what he's giving Putin because the deal has not yet been done. The beginning of the conversation started because Donald Trump is in the White House, right? Before that, there was no conversation. Biden didn't have a conversation with anybody because he was fast asleep and pretty much horizontal through most of the 4 years he was in charge. So now you've got a guy who's actually doing something. I'm not going to sit here and say that everything he does is right because I don't know what he's doing, and nobody does. But what he is doing is making sure that the war will at some point or other in the very near future come to an end.
We don't know what he's doing. We do know what he's doing.
No, you don't.
Yes, we do. Yesterday...
All right, well, last week, hang on, last week, you were all... last week, all you lefties were going on about how he's selling out Vladimir Zelensky, he's selling out Ukraine, he's giving Putin everything he wants. This week, he's not doing that. This week, he's inviting Zelensky to come to Washington. This week, Zelensky's offering to step down in order to get peace. And he's also saying there might be some kind of deal on the table for the sale of Ukraine's minerals. So the story moves all the time.
Right. He said, like I said, yesterday, he literally voted in the United Nations with Putin.
Yeah.
He sat down with talks with Putin, not with Ukraine.
What does that mean?
That means he's siding with Vladimir Putin.
No, it doesn't. No. I mean, that's such a naive point of view.
All right,
it doesn't mean that. Well, do you seriously think that voting in the UN means a fag end? It doesn't.
Okay, Mike. Let's test this. Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin was a dictator. Donald Trump said Ukraine was to blame for the war. Donald Trump has been asked, does he think...
He said Zelensky was a dictator.
Zelensky. Donald Trump...
I'm getting confused now, Dan.
Donald Trump was then asked, do you think Vladimir Putin's a dictator? Wouldn't or couldn't answer.
Yeah.
He said, do you think Russia was to blame for the war? Wouldn't or couldn't answer.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
It tells me that Trump is playing you like a fiddle. Because you're going, oh look, it must be proof. It must be proof. Yeah, it must be proof that Donald Trump is a Russian, agent. It's not proof of anything.
Absolutely right. I completely agree. As I literally said this yesterday, we know for certain he's not a Russian agent because no Russian agent would be this stupid.
Yeah,
no Russian agent would be this.
But that's the point.
They try and keep their.
Exactly. So think about that.
Blatantly pro-Putin.
Right. So think about what you've just said. And then think about the consequences of what you've just said. And what you've actually said is that Trump is doing the exact opposite of somebody who would be a Russian agent. Therefore, he's not a Russian agent. Therefore, he's actually sucking into Russia in order to get a peace deal of some kind, which you don't know the end result will be, and neither do I. But what I can tell you is that he's not an idiot, right? And he must know that people like you will be writing him off and saying, look what he's doing. You know, look how he's being more friendly to Russia. He's already moved the dial on the peace talks. He's already talking to Zelensky. Zelensky's already talking to him. You know, we're getting there. That's the point.
Mike, if Joe Biden or anyone else over the last 3 years had wanted to capitulate to Putin and stab Ukraine in the back, they could have done it at any time. The fact is they didn't want to. Trump does want to. Trump's been very clear.
No, Trump wants to end the war.
People like you are running around trying to sort of rationalise what he's doing. Justify what he's doing.
No,
it's very obvious.
What I'm saying to you,
been like this
Dan,
all his life.
Dan,
he's
listen, I will make a bet with you.
He said he's a fan of Putin.
I will make a bet with you right now. You know, if you don't like the way that the war is settled, you can come back to me and say, I don't like the way the war is settled. I think Trump gave too much to Putin. I guarantee you that won't happen right now.
Right. So you think Trump will force Putin to withdraw from Ukraine?
I think Trump will force a deal with Putin.
No. That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, I'm not going to second guess what the conditions are likely to be. I don't know what the conditions are likely to be.
What would you like a deal to be, Mike? You said to me, You said to me, you'll come back if you don't like the deal. Fine. I'll tell you what I wouldn't like. I don't want any deal in which Putin holds on to any of the ground that he secured.
So you'd be quite happy for more Ukrainians to die because you don't want a deal for peace?
Mike, no one is happy.
You want them to keep fighting, then, do you?
Mike, no one's happy. This is just stupid.
Well, it is
no one is
stupid.
happy.
That's why we shouldn't be having
the reason why Ukrainians are dying. The reason why Ukrainians are dying.
Why are they dying?
They're dying because a whole load of Russians marched into their country and started killing them.
Okay. So what do you want to do to stop that?
The President of the United States.
So what do you want to do to stop that?
To acknowledge that.
What do you want to do to stop that?
What we're going to do to stop that is what we've been doing to stop that. We're going to stand with.
We haven't been stopping
not
it.
Stab them in the back. Like Donald Trump wants to.
No, because you're letting people die because you don't want to give up any kind of ground to Putin, right? You don't want to give any kind of quarter to somebody who has invaded the country.
Right. Fine, well, let's reverse it. You do want to give ground to Putin.
It's not. First of all, it's not my ground to give, right? But what I want to see.
It's not my ground to give either. You're asking me what I want as a settlement to the war. What do you want as a settlement to the war?
Well, I don't. It's not for me to say, but I think it would be a good idea.
Why is it for me to say, but not you to say?
Well, because you're the one that's very vociferous about it. You're the one that seems to know exactly what you think Ukraine should be doing, and you seem to be very willing. You seem to be very willing to put people on the fire for your honour, so that you can write about it in the paper on Sunday.
Mike, you asked me what I thought a solution would be. I'm telling you. Now I'm asking you, what do you think the fair solution is?
Well, I wouldn't be arrogant enough to answer that because what you're doing
is you're sitting there and you're waiting for Donald Trump to tell you what a good deal is, and then when he does it, you say Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump's done it, it's a good deal.
Not at all. Absolute rubbish.
Fine. Well, then what do you want? Fine. Then what do you want as a deal?
Well, it's not what I want as a deal. It's what I think a deal would be.
Straight talk. Come on, Mike. Straight talking. Home of common sense.
Well, it is the home of common sense. All right, you want the home of common sense. The home of common sense would suggest that if you want to stop a war, right, you negotiate the end of a war. That's what usually happens, right? And when you negotiate the end of a war, you find out exactly what you can get in return for something being given to you, right? Now, at the moment, you've got a situation where Putin is still killing people and Ukraine is not winning in any way, shape or form in any part of that world, right? So what you would do is you would say to Vladimir Putin, you know, how much will it be for you to stop fighting in this war? How much would you need for us to make you stop, right? And then you listen, and then you hang on, you haven't heard the end of it yet. You see, jumping the gun again. Then you would see, right, if what he says is acceptable or not acceptable, and then you go from there. I don't know where the end result is. All I know is I don't think it's right for people in Western Europe to continue to demand that Ukrainians continue to die in order to defend a part of Ukraine, which in fact many people who live there think is part of Russia.
Right, Mike, but you're telling us what you don't want, but what do you want? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I want. All right. Let's get back down to brass tacks. What I do want is for us to stop spending British taxpayers' money propping up the Zelensky regime, fighting a Russian army that they can't win. I don't want to keep giving billions and billions of pounds to them, which Keir Starmer seems to think is a great idea. And he thought it was an even better idea until Donald Trump told him it wasn't.
Mike, sorry, again, you keep saying what you don't want. What do you think that you've been sort of very articulate about? There's a war taking place. It has to stop. Fine. On what terms do you want it to stop? I've been very clear. I don't want the war to stop on any basis.
You don't want the war to stop?
I don't want the war to stop on any basis that allows Putin to retain the land that he has illegally seized. Because not because I want the war to continue, because if he does that, he'll do it again.
I don't think so. I think there are ways.
You don't think so, Mike?
There are ways.
So what do you think?
Well, I think.
What do you think the solution should look like?
If you let me answer you, I think there are ways of containing Putin. Right, and if it means that you have to give him a little sliver of land in order to contain him and stop him from ever doing it again, then maybe that is the price that you have to pay.
So you think the way to stop him from seizing land is to give him land?
Yes, I do.
Right, so you think the way to stop Putin...
I do. Have you never had a neighbour... Have you never had a dispute with your neighbour?
So you think the way to say... To convince Putin not to seize land in the future is to say, we'll give you the land you've just seized now?
No, you'll give him some of it. And I think that's not as irrational as you're trying to make it out to be.
Right, so appease him. Appease Vladimir.
Well, not appease him. Not appease him, control him. I've always said it's much easier to control your enemies if they're close to you as opposed to having them on the outside.
Control him by giving him what he wants?
No, that's not the point. It's more nuanced than that, Dan. You should know that. It's not black and white, is it?
It is black and white. Vladimir Putin invaded another sovereign country.
Yeah.
Now, he cannot be allowed to retain those gains, because if he is, he's going to do it again.
What did you say? What did you say when he invaded? When he invaded it? What did you say when he invaded it in 2014? Did you say that then? When he was appeased?
Yes, we should have stood up to him in 2014.
Right.
What happened when in 2014 we did exactly what you're saying we should do now? What happened in 2014 when
it wasn't done right? Because it was ignored. It was not. There was no deal struck. It was just he was just allowed to do what he wanted to do. But I'm being told I have to go now because I'm winning. Apparently, it's already, the game's already over, according to my producer. Anyway, listen, good to talk to you, Dad. We'll keep going with it. One of these days you'll understand what I mean. I think he's been deliberately obtuse, quite frankly. Send him a free bumper sticker. The home of common sense, he can put it on the back of his larder, whatever he drives. 0344 499 1000. Send your email to feedback@talk.tv. Get a free bumper sticker. We might do one up saying Dan Hodges is always wrong. Join the home of the common sense. Stay calm and listen to Talk.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It is 9:34. I'm Mike Graham. You know what to do. If you want a sticker, a bumper sticker for your car, do email us, feedback@talk.tv. Mike Ainsbury appealing his sentence is very risky for him, says John in Long Lawford. It may mean he ends up with a longer sentence, as the original sentence may be deemed to be unduly lenient. He is hoping. Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure what exactly he's actually appealing. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me. I don't really know. Penny in Cornwall says, I've never before been a member of a political party, but recently joined Reform UK so that I could attend yesterday's conference in Cornwall. I can only describe the experience as totally uplifting. The speakers were full of conviction. They were eloquent and passionate and clearly determined to save our magnificent country from oblivion. I woke up this morning full of hope for our collective future, something that I haven't felt for a very long time. Well, Penny, I absolutely take my hat off to you, and well done to you, because a lot of people are telling me now that actually that lot of manky-looking people that were demonstrating outside the conference were not actually indeed Cornwallians. They were more likely to be Antifa imports who had been bussed in to shout, say it loud, say it clear, refugees are welcome here. You know, that's what they do. Morning, Mike, says Leah. Just sent an email to receive my bumper stickers, which will be proudly displayed on my non-ULEZ compliant van. Brilliant. Absolutely right. Quite right too. Let's get a voice note from Wayne.
Good morning, Mike. I've just applied for my bumper sticker. I cannot wait to get stuck in a traffic jam with your beautiful face staring at those woke EV Tesla drivers that think they're saving the planet when they ain't got a Scooby-Doo. Cheers, mate. Great show.
The cyclists will enjoy it as well. You know, my friends in this cycling lane looking at a bumper sticker with my face on it would be great. Jay from Southport says, sticks and stones may break my bones, but posts are way more hurty. The double standards in this country are laughable. Great show as always, Mike. Keep up the good work. Bumper sticker ordered. Very good. And Alan in Nottingham says, morning, Mike. Great show as always. Great stickers. In the early 80s, there were lots of car stickers that stated, don't blame me, I voted Labour. Slight modification, and we've got, don't blame me, I didn't vote Labour. Absolutely right. Now, we've got some breaking news. We've received thousands and thousands of requests for these bumper stickers, so we will get them out to you as fast as we possibly can. In fact, we may have to hire a few people to get licking the old envelopes to get them out to you. So just make sure that you do it soon. And if you haven't done it yet, feedback at talk.tv. Now, earlier we're playing you some of the nonsense from Keir Starmer. I've got to play this again because if you just joined us, which is very late, by the way, 9:37, you should have been here a bit earlier. But if you haven't been able to and you've just now joined us, have a look at this, right? This is Keir Starmer yesterday zooming in, because that's what he does, to a big on-air meeting, shall we say, with Volodymyr Zelensky and a bunch of other world leaders. And this is his message to Ukraine.
The UK is with you today and every day. From His Majesty the King to the NHS workers volunteering in hospitals in Ukraine, to the communities that took Ukrainian refugees to their heart. And that's why I signed our 100-year partnership with President Zelensky last month, because we believe in Ukraine's fight today and the country's incredible potential to thrive in the years to come.
Why is he reading it off a piece of paper? What's wrong with him? Remember Chamberlain with his piece of paper? At least he hadn't sort of carried it above his head. I have with me a piece of paper signed by Adolf Hitler, which means that there will be no war in Western Europe. You got that wrong. How's this from Carol in West Sussex? Morning, Mike. What I'd like to know is this. Why are NHS volunteers working in hospitals in Ukraine when we haven't got enough staff over here? Just asking for a friend. It's a very good question. It's a very good question. Why is he talking about the King? Why is he talking about NHS volunteers in Ukraine? And why can't he just say anything without reading from a piece of paper? I mean, it's like this. I only read from one piece of paper at a time. I can't seem to remember anything. What a complete and utter plonker. Coming up, we're going to talk to TalkSport's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, because, of course, coming up tonight from 7 p.m, just on the radio, by the way, Wolves take on Fulham. Wednesday, title contenders Liverpool face Newcastle. Both fixtures live and exclusive here on Talk. But don't worry, because we know how much of a fan you are of Kevin O'Sullivan. You will still be able to watch Kevin on YouTube and on your smart TV. And, of course, you'll be able to listen to it in other smart forms on the app and everything else. So Kevin O'Sullivan very much still doing the show, but there's a bit of a football interview intervening, by the way, tonight and tomorrow night, because it's getting down to the wire in the Premier League. It's come to Talk this week. 0344 499 1000. Hayden in sunny, frosty Manchester says this. Hope you're both well. That was addressed to me and Peter Blexley. Ordered my bumper sticker. I hope I'm not going to be pulled over by lack of common sense police now. I don't normally message in, but just wanted to say great show, great channel. Keep up the fight. This is what we do. We are the home of common sense. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. And not only that, but you can also win some money while we're at it. How about this? It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Great show, says Faz. It would depend on which MP was attacked in our two-tier society. For example, if you criticise a Labour councillor, you get a visit from the Stasi. But if you throw an object at Nigel Farage, you get a free pass. Yeah, I know. There does seem to be two-tier justice. But, of course, if you ask Keir Starmer whether there is two-tier justice, you get the answer, no, absolutely not, because he doesn't like being asked those kind of questions. It's 9:41. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:42. I am, of course, the home of common sense. Well, not just me, but the entire station, actually. Blood boiling as usual, says Phil in Coventry. Still enjoying the show. NHS workers volunteering in Ukraine. Hope they're not getting paid using my taxes. Have they been told how long the queues are in A&E? Well, exactly right. What on earth is going on? Coming up tonight, just in case you didn't get enough fun with all the shows that take you all the way through the day, Julie Hartley-Brewery and Collins, Jeremy Kyle back, of course, on Drive. Kevin O'Sullivan at 7 o'clock tonight. He's going to be on YouTube tonight, though, because on radio, we are bringing you a Talk exclusive Premier League action coming with 2 exclusive football commentaries. Wolves take on Fulham, and on Wednesday, title contenders Liverpool face Newcastle. Both fixtures will be live and exclusive right here on Talk. Let's talk now to Alex Crook, who is Talk Sports chief football correspondent. Alex, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, I mean, this is something special, isn't it? A bit of football for the Talk listeners. Tell us about what's going on, because we're getting down to the wire. I mean, I know Liverpool's tomorrow night. 11 points clear. Is it all over? It is all over, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. What a treat your listeners are in for there, though, by the way. Liverpool-Newcastle is a game, I think, that conjures up iconic memories of past matches. Who can forget Kevin Keegan slumped over those advertising hoardings at Anfield when Newcastle threw away a 12-point lead at the end of the 96-97 season. But, yeah, I don't see that happening with Liverpool.
Was there not that 4-3 Stan Collymore game as well? Was that not Newcastle?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was the last minute goal. It was 95-96, actually, not 96-97. But, yeah, Liverpool looked too defensively organised. I think Arne Slot is too tactically astute for that to happen. And crucially, 7 of their last 12 games are at Anfield. They've got the best home record in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest, the only team to win there. I was at Arsenal at the weekend. They lost at home to West Ham, and it felt like even the players and certainly the fans had lost belief come full time that they could reel Liverpool in. So, yeah, I don't see Liverpool throwing this away.
No, indeed. And I mean, Fulham playing Wolves tonight, that's a big one for Fulham, obviously. But what were you expecting there?
Yeah, it's a big one for Wolves as well, because they're almost in a mini-league at the bottom of the table. I think most of us would agree that Southampton and probably Leicester are down. So it's between Wolves and Ipswich for that final relegation place. Ipswich go to Manchester United tomorrow. Now, in previous season, you think, well, they're not going to get much joy in that game. But United are playing so badly at the moment, particularly at home, that maybe Kieran McKenna, former United coach, can spring an upset. And that would put the pressure on Wolves. As you say, they take on Fulham tonight. They won 1-0 at Bournemouth at the weekend. I think they've got too much quality. And in Mateus Cunha, they've got a player who's destined to go and play for bigger and better clubs. So I think they'll be fine. But Fulham, a difficult opponent. Marco Silva quietly is having a really good season.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic stuff. Good to see Alex. Thanks very much indeed. Alex Crook there, TalkSport chief football correspondent. Tonight, Wolves take on Fulham, and Wednesday, title contenders Liverpool face Newcastle. Both fixtures live and exclusive here on Talk. But don't forget, you can still see Kevin O'Sullivan and his great show, The Political Asylum, on YouTube's channel, the talkTV YouTube channel, or on your smart TV as well, or on the app. This, of course, is Morning Glory. It's 9:45. This is the home of common sense. We've got so many requests for so many of the bumper stickers. We're going to have to make some more, I think, because we've only got a few thousand. So keep them coming, keep requesting them, and we'll keep them getting out to you. This is Talk.
I believe we are the only country this has happened. So the government has expressly asked Apple to drop this privacy feature, which is called ADP, Advanced Data Protection. To what ends, we don't know. The order is secret. Apple's not going to tell us. The government's not going to tell us. And we are the only country. And it's rather unusual for a free country to be putting these kind of limitations on its citizens' privacy, and concerning. So yeah, we are alone in the world, and I can't imagine it makes us look particularly enlightened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's 9:48, and of course Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here in about 10 minutes' time to take us through what's going on her show from 10 o'clock all the way through till 1. Ian Collins after that, and Jeremy Kyle back, of course, with Drive from 4. We'll be hearing from him a little bit later on as well. Let's say a very good morning though to Angela Levin, our favourite royal biographer, who's here with us to talk about that lovely Meghan Markle, who apparently can't seem to get anything right at all in her quest to sort of find herself a way of making money in the United States of America. Angela, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's been too long. I mean, I can't quite believe how useless Meghan Markle is at managing to pick a name which somebody else hasn't picked. I mean, does she not have people in her employ who would sort of do a quick search on the internet and go, oh no, you can't say American Riviera, whatever it was, because somebody else says that, and you can't say you know, love Meghan, and you can't say as ever because other people have got the name.
Well, the main reason is that she doesn't have anybody running it for her. She decided that no one was good enough. That's true. No one was good enough, and she wanted to do it by herself. Well, it's quite understandable logically that she can't do everything herself. But actually, it's ludicrous because she doesn't know the every part of what you have to do when you want to do something on Netflix or you want to do anything. What she is good at, and I think this is very unpleasant of me to say, is that she's good at undermining people's confidence. And a lot of people leave, and she makes them very, very unhappy. So that's what she does. So everybody needs her to get on with it. It's dreadful.
But, I mean, this is the story that we've got here, that a cut-price Chinese clothing company and a family-run New York-based retailer among the fashion outlets with the same name as Ever that she wanted to start as her new lifestyle brand. And, I mean, I take your point that she can't do everything herself, but surely to heavens, if you or I was decided to start a company, you might say, can we just check that nobody else is using that name as, like, the first thing you would say?
Well, of course it is, but she thinks she's better than anyone at doing everything, and she doesn't want anyone even have the minutest control of what's going on.
Yeah.
Therefore, she falls underneath the table. I mean, it is ridiculous because she couldn't care less. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not going to change it. She's not going to apologise or say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realise. Would you mind?" You know, it just she leaves it as it is and carries on, and it sort of works itself through because she's a very hard person to go against. And actually, if you are like one of them who's in New York, who has a little shop and he makes certain type of clothing, and he hasn't got the money to take her to court or even to get, you know, an apology. And so she knows that and she wallows in it. And also it gives her a lot of people talking about her, watching her. And that's really what she wants. She doesn't care if it's because it's someone else's name, or that they're unhappy about it, or they haven't got the money to fight her at court. She doesn't care a hoot. She just carries on. It's extraordinary.
It really is.
I mean, I think,
it really is extraordinary.
give you... Yeah, pardon?
I said it really is extraordinary because you would think that somebody who is as avaricious as she is, and I don't mean that just in terms of financial needs, but just in terms of publicity, in terms of the way she wants to be treated and the way she wants to be talked about, that she would not want to put a foot wrong. And all she seems to have done in the last 3 or 4 months is put every foot wrong.
She only got 2, but she does that a lot.
I mean, talk about 2 left feet. I mean, she just keeps putting her both feet in her mouth, you know?
Yeah, she doesn't mind, though. I think it's this thing that any publicity is good publicity. I think that's what she's following.
Yes.
The thing that I find absolutely extraordinary is that at the Invictus Games, she was adoring Harry, absolutely kissing, cuddling him, all that sort of stuff. And as soon as she got back home, she then said she was now on Instagram and she was now showing us the pictures of their children.
Yeah.
And Harry hates both those things. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want his children to be shown to the public for safety reasons. And he doesn't want her to go on social media because he hates this. And he's got a charity that is against it.
Right.
She couldn't care less. I think that's the thing that shows you she doesn't want to do that for him, her husband who you adore.
Yes.
What would you do for little people who had a small shop somewhere else?
Well, this is a big question, isn't it? I mean, does she really adore him, or has he kind of begun to outlive his usefulness?
Well, I think he's useful at the moment because he's there when she needs his voice and his him to be there, but he doesn't have to be there very long now. It's like going to be the one on Netflix is going to be for 2 minutes in the 8th episode.
Right.
So I think she's trying to get what she can do and move on, and soon she won't need him.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of how it looks, isn't it?
Yes. The embarrassment is enormous if you see what she does in the Invictus Games and then changes her mind. It's very difficult. It's the same thing, isn't it? She doesn't stick with anything. She doesn't.
No,
carry
I mean,
on with
it seems to me you and I have been having these conversations for quite a long time, and it seems as though to me she's very good at announcing what she's going to do, but then she doesn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, she's full of ideas. It's like, we can't wait to get started with all our new projects, and then you go, where are they? And they're not there.
You know, she said this last one. I'm so excited. And she whispers it. It's kept secret from you for so long.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then there's nothing going on yet.
Right.
I mean, it's to keep
it's kind of pathetic, really, isn't it?
Yes.
It really
but
is.
To make it exciting for people, you have to say all that, and then immediately they can get it. They don't have to wait several months.
No.
Because then they get bored stiff.
Exactly. I mean, it's like me saying we're going to give out bumper stickers, but we're not going to give them out till September. We're giving them out today. We'll send you one, Angela. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Feedback at talk.tv. If you haven't got one yet, get one for the back of your car, or the front of your car, or indeed the back of your mobility scooter, whatever you like. You can put them on there and you will know that you're part of the revolution of common sense. Let's talk to Cliff, who's in East Yorkshire, wants to talk about solar panels. Cliff, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning, sir. What can I do for you?
Well, this Ed Miliband, he hasn't a clue about how solar systems work.
No.
Now, I lived in Spain for 6 years off grid, so I built my own solar system.
Okay.
You know, I mean,
when you say you built your own solar system, you mean your own solar panel system?
Yes.
Yes.
But I was totally off grid, so I didn't have a national grid supply.
Okay.
And I know how many solar panels it took to power my house,
right.
and swimming pool and things.
And how many was it?
40.
40? Blimey.
40. Now then, you get somebody to analyse it and say 100 amp supply that the national grid puts into your house.
Right.
How many solar panels will it take to make up that 100 amp of power? And you'd be absolutely gobsmacked. They can't fit them on the roof.
No.
That many.
You must have had quite a big house, did you?
No, it was just a 3-bedroom villa.
Ah. So where did you put the 40 solar panels?